Grande Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2020. We'll start our council meeting as we do every council meeting with our national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to an alumni of our very own Grande Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We'll move into the adoption of our previous council meeting minutes. Can I get an adoption for that set of minutes, Council? Sorry, a motion for that set of minutes? Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that Council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held Monday, August 10th, as presented. Great.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Were there any errors in those minutes that we needed to correct before we formally adopted them? Seeing nobody, then I will call for the vote. All in favor of adopting the August 10th minutes? Thank you. And I will just observe that I think I've lost Councillor Clayton. And for anybody that might be watching, obviously with technology, we're dealing with it the same as everybody else and with the occasional hiccup. For the purposes of our council meeting, if a council member isn't on screen to be able to cast their vote, our practice has been that we're not counting that vote. And if a council member disappears from the screen or from the meeting, we just take that as they have exited the meeting. They may return and attend. Which does happen actually in person sometimes. A council member may need to leave the council meeting room and they're just recorded in the minutes as absent for that part. But that motion did carry to adopt the minutes. Can I get a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the council adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on the agenda as presented? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the delegation portion of our afternoon agenda. We have an opportunity at every regular City Council meeting for any member of the public to present to Council. We have two opportunities. One is the open delegations, which is the afternoon portion. And then we have time for scheduled delegations during our evening portion of our agenda. I know that there were two delegations that had let us know in advance they wish to present this afternoon. And so we'll call our first, Natasha Canaday. Natasha, I think I see your name on the screen. We'll invite you to turn your camera on and welcome to the City Council meeting. We'll give you about 5 minutes or so to make your presentation, and then there's about a similar amount of time for Council to ask any questions. Welcome.
Thank you. It seems appropriate to remind us all of Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom that states, everyone has the right of life, liberty, and security of the person and the right not to be deprived thereof except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. The Supreme Court has said that liberty protects not only the right to be free from physical imprisonment, except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice, but also inherently private choices that go to the core of what it means to enjoy individual dignity and independence. On April 6th, the WHO released a guideline saying that healthy people do not need to wear face masks to prevent coronavirus spread. Masks should be worn for sick, their caretakers, and healthcare workers. The WHO stated healthy people don't need to wear a mask and that doing so will prevent extra protection from the coronavirus. There is currently no evidence that wearing a mask, whether medical or other types, by healthy persons in a wider community setting, including universal community masking, can prevent the infection with respiratory viruses, including COVID-19. On the CDC website, they misleadingly cite studies supporting mandatory mask wearing. However, when you go to the recommended site, not one of the studies recommends wearing a mask or how the mask prevents transmission and how asymptomatic people would benefit from wearing the mask. In the cited CDC research papers, they say, research is needed to determine whether such patients can be treated with appropriate guidelines and oversight outside the hospital. The second study issued by the CDC to support the mandatory mask mandate states how SARS-CoV-2 viral load correlates with cultural viruses needs to be determined. The third study issued, more studies are needed to observe the symptoms and test results of infected individuals in greater detail. The fourth study, proactive steps by long-term care facilities to identify and exclude potentially infected staff and visitors, the mechanism by which asymptomatic carriers could acquire and transmit the coronavirus that causes COVID-19 requires further study. The fifth study, pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic transmission modes have not been definitively documented for COVID-19. What is supposed to be one of the most deadly pandemics in human history, people are being advised to wear cloth masks made out of old scarves, as stated by the American Surgeon General. Homemade masks are not medical devices. They are unhygienic and not regulated like N95 respirator masks, surgical masks, or even a painter's mask. A proper N95 mask needs to be fit tested, and not doing so is a direct violation of PPE protocol. The FDA states even a proper fitted N95 mask does not prevent illness or death. Masks restrict air intake. Breathing is a fundamental God-given right protected by universal law. Men and women are sovereign beings. We are not owned by the government. Therefore, government cannot force us to wear a mask under any law. There have been several studies that have shown that surgical masks provide little to any protection against infection, including a meta-analysis published in 2016 in the Cochrane Systemic Review that found that when physicians wore a mask or didn't wear a mask, there was no statistically significant difference in infection rate between the masked and unmasked groups in any of the trials. The researchers noted it is unclear whether wearing a surgical mask results in any harm or benefit to the patient undergoing clean surgery. Other studies published in the Hospital of Infections and More have also concluded the use of surgical masks in surgery are obsolete and unnecessary. Researchers at the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy summarized it as clinical trials in surgery theater have found that there is no difference in wound infection rate with and without surgical masks. Despite these findings, it has been difficult for surgeons to give up the long-standing practice. Neurosurgeon Dr. Russell Blaylock states, quote, "There is no scientific evidence that masks are effective. If you are not sick, you should not wear a mask," end quote. Masks were developed to be used in surgery, and we are now asking these masks to take on a new role. We are hoping, not following scientific evidence, that masks will reduce the spread of communicable infections within the general population. Viruses are measured in nanometers. At the size of 17 to 140 nanometers, you can actually fit hundreds, if not thousands of our virus cells into a single bacterial cell. The protective pore size of a conventional cloth mask and surgical masks are gigantic compared to viruses. Virus particles can fit through masks as easily as flies going through a chain-link fence. In Holland, top scientists have said face masks in public places are not necessary. Based on all current evidence, Cohen Buran, spokesman for the National Institute of Public Health and the Environment, said, quote, "There is no benefit and there may even be negative impact," end quote. Sweden has been a model country for the coronavirus with no lockdown protocols or mandatory mask mandates. In August, Sweden has registered 1 death from coronavirus and only 4 new cases. Sweden's lead epidemiologist, Anders Tegnell, warns, face masks are very dangerous because it gives a false sense of security and does not effectively stem the spread of the virus. Tegnell further said, I'm surprised that we don't have more or better studies showing the effects of masks actually have. Countries such as Belgium and Spain have made their population wear a mask, but their infection numbers have still risen. In terms of testing and false positives, the fact is none of the tests mean anything because they haven't isolated the virus. In order to develop a vaccine or test for a virus, you first have to isolate the virus to reproduce it. All they have done is isolate a partial DNA sequence and particles of coronavirus, which very easily could have came from last year's flu vaccine. Well, this is why the Ontario Administration of Health has stated that tests are at least 50% false positive. You cannot have a false positive or a negative without knowing what you are looking for. In regards to the quality of testing being done, Dr. Andrew Kossman stated, quote, poor procedure when trying to isolate the virus. The method they are using is equivalent to comparing a human being to a chimpanzee, end quote. No one knows what the actual number of coronavirus is because the testing is flawed. The inventor of the PCR test, the test used to test for the coronavirus, stated, scientists are doing an awful lot of damage in the world in the name of trying to help it. I don't mind attacking my own work because I'm ashamed of it, end quote. That's Dr. Carrie reaction. I find it troublesome that the social media platforms and mainstream media are silencing doctors. There's well over 100 world experts in epidemiology, immunology, and virology, including Nobel Prize winners that have been censored and blocked for going against the narrative of recommended protocols from global elites such as Bill Gates, who is not a doctor or a scientist. Issuing a mandatory mask mandate during a pandemic that has a similar infection rate to the yearly flu is a direct violation of human rights. There is no supporting scientific evidence that proves masks work and should be worn. Government, under the Bill of Rights, does not have any authority to mandate masks. There is evidence that wearing a mask can endanger your health through reducing our oxygen intake and increasing our carbon dioxide levels. Long-term mask wearing could affect us all negatively. When surgeons are wearing masks in operating room, they're also receiving extra oxygen into the room to help keep them properly oxygenated. What happens when healthy people get less oxygen every day through mask mandates? Could wearing a mask create more health issues than supposedly solve? Viruses and bacteria cannot live in fully oxygenated environments. Restricting oxygen flow is counterintuitive. I find it rather confusing why the government isn't recommending a healthy, balanced diet, drinking plenty of good water, vitamin D or C, getting outside and exercising, socializing, sitting in the sun, meditation, or any form of de-stressing, and lastly, getting enough sleep. These are all principal factors behind a healthy, strong immune system. During the height of the pandemic, mom and pop shops were deemed non-essential and box stores, fast food chains were allowed to stay open. Health food stores that sell vitamins and items to keep people healthy were deemed non-essential and had to fight to stay open. To top that off, the government allocated fast food restaurants as the location to pick up free masks. Fast food restaurants, not grocery stores, not gas stations, fast food restaurants. Food that's known to lower your immune system and cause heart disease and cancer. This is highly concerning. More people have died from COVID measures put in place than the actual coronavirus. The UN Food Bank has warned that disruption of supplies and distribution routes around the world has as many as 100 or 130 million people will be on the brink of starvation by the end of this year. In fact, the UN Food Bank has also stated that 10,000 extra children are dying a month from COVID measures. In England, The Guardian reported after analyzing statistics between April 2019 and April 2020, an extra 10,000 Alzheimer's patients have died in 2020 as a direct result of isolation and lack of ability to get regular medical services because of the COVID measures. In Canada, the amount of people that have committed suicide from depression as a direct result to COVID far exceeds the number of people that have actually died from COVID. I personally know of 6. This situation is only going to worsen with a mask mandate. Further, there are many people who simply cannot wear a mask. They have respiratory disease or they have post-traumatic stress disorder, and having things put over their mouth creates anxiety. We have witnessed global attacks on people who cannot wear a mask. You are pitting citizen against citizen. In Australia, a video emerged of police officers choking a woman to the ground for not wearing a mask. This is equivalent to Nazi Germany. The virtue signaling of mask wearers is out of control. Wear your mask so you don't kill me? Who's to determine who can wear a mask and who cannot? And how do you identify and protect those people in public places from the fanatics that seek to harm them? There are safety concerns for businesses. If people's faces are covered, how do you identify criminals? Acts of criminality get easier to get away with when it's difficult to identify who committed the crime. In addition, mask wearing muffles communication, and it inhibits lip reading with hearing impaired people. Even hearing able people have a difficult time communicating through masks. I would also like to remind the nurses that on September 15, 2015, the Canadian press reported on a mandatory mask mandate for nurses in Ontario during flu season. The ruling stated you cannot force nurses to wear a mask. The coronavirus has a similar infection rate to the flu. The mortality rate is less than 0.0005%. Process that again, less than 0.005%. We have stopped the economy and done economic damage that will affect generations for a virus that's similar to the flu. While I recognize the tragic loss of lives, people also die in a normal flu season. 84% of coronavirus deaths have occurred in long-term healthcare or long-term facilities. Almost all the people that have died from coronavirus are the elderly or have underlying health conditions. I would also like to add that the conditions that have been implemented to the senior care facilities are abusive and disturbing. I have a 90-year-old grandmother who would rather take risks and see her family than feel like she's a prisoner in her own home. More lives are being lost right now from neglect, suicide, alcohol abuse, and drug addiction than anything else. The socioeconomic effects of the coronavirus have been devastating to our community. We have lost several businesses, and many people are struggling financially and mentally right now. Masks will only further accelerate the situation. I would like to ask, who is going to take responsibility for this mandate? Who is going to take responsibility for the loss of life, the closure of businesses, the increase in mental health issues? Counselors, if you're mandating this, signing your name to this, it is assumed you will be taking full liability for the mental and physical ramifications and the loss of lives we've yet to see due to these mandates. There is expert reports coming out of the hospital for sick children stating that this generation is going to suffer from PTSD, anxiety, mental health problems, and an increase in suicide rates, all because of mask wearing.
Ms. Canaday, as I mentioned, we like to give our delegations approximately 5 minutes.
I'm almost
really well over
and
that.
I would like to finish off, please. I'm almost finished. Once again, I ask counselors, are you ready to be liable for this? Masks should be worn voluntarily, not mandatory. 4 decades of controlled studies have shown that masks don't work with aerosol viruses. Has the science changed in the last 6 months? And if so, where are the updated peer-reviewed scientific papers that support this? Or is this just politics? The politics of fear don't take precedence over scientific evidence. There are many ways of preventing the coronavirus, such as proper diet, nutrition, exercise, and mindfulness. Our immune system is designed to be around bacteria and germs. We have evolved on this planet for millions of years. Our bodies know how to adapt and change. By sheltering behind plexiglass windows, mask wearing, and obsessive hand sanitization, we are damaging our bodies in ways we don't yet know. We could have multi-generational effects through our DNA and epigenetics. Fear, anxiety, stress, lack of sunlight, poor nutrition only suppress the immune system. Exposure to germs and bacteria builds the immune system from natural immunity. Never in history have we stopped the economy and quarantined the healthy for a virus that is killing less than 0.005% of the population. In closing, I would like to offer you a quote from Mark Twain. It is easier to fool someone than to convince someone they have been fooled. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Canaday. Are there any questions for the delegation? Councillor Palat, and then Councillor O'Toole.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Appreciate all the information you put there. I think there's a lot of information about that, but you painted a pretty big picture about the non-COVID effects. So I don't have any real comments to make other than I really liked your comments about eating healthy diets, one of the things that I wish that was publicly being messaged right now instead of some of the other messaging. So thanks for everything you said. I appreciate it. We're going to have a fun debate coming up in council about this, and appreciate you taking the time to come in.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Councillor O'Toole?
Yes, thank you very much for being here. You spent about 15 minutes chastising us and stuff like that, so I just kind of want to know a little bit about your background.
I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I'm a concerned citizen who's done a lot of research, and I highly recommend you do the same.
Okay. Well, we're not a doctor, and we're not scientists either. We take direction from a couple of different areas. One is the federal government, one is the provincial government. And we go by from what the provincial government tells us to do. And I have some concerns. My mother was is in a long-term care center right now. And I've been very, very welcome to see her in the last couple of weeks because she's been in lockdown too. I understand the mental anguish, but I think if you got your facts straight, I don't think you got all of them straight. But thank you for bringing this up to us. And we'll have a good debate here later today. Or maybe whenever it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. And just to be clear for Ms. Canaday and anybody else that might be watching or interested in the topic, the item related to masks today on our council agenda is specific to a public information campaign and not a bylaw or a mandate. Council has asked administration to draft a bylaw for our consideration. That'll be coming in the coming weeks, likely next week. But today we are discussing the initiation of a public information campaign. So I didn't see anybody else with any additional questions. That being the case, thanks very much, Ms. Canaday, for your attendance at our council meeting today, and we'll move on to our next delegation. Our next delegation was Kate Weber. Kate, are you there? There you are, Kate. Welcome. Kate, you saw sort of the a version of delegation presentation. Typically, we do about 5 minutes, as I said. We invite you to introduce yourself and make a presentation. Welcome.
Okay. My project or proposal colleague is also here with me. Is she allowed to we kind of do this together,
yes.
kind of like two parts?
Yeah, okay no, absolutely. I know in the materials there was two, but I was just going by the name on the agenda. Absolutely.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so my name is Kate Weber. I am a high school teacher, and I've lived in Grande Prairie my whole life. And our proposal that I hope you maybe had a chance to look at, I'm not sure if it got to you, it is a project to create visibility around Indigenous stories local to our community. So this is a really big project, and we're hoping that we can kind of combine outdoor spaces with the intersectionality of art and social justice to kind of create a really cool opportunity for anti-racism work in the city of Grande Prairie. So I'll kind of tell you about the project, and then maybe Joss can kind of talk about her part as well. So the mission for our project is to take Indigenous stories and infuse them into outdoor spaces. So for us in the city of Grande Prairie, this looks like the Muskosipi Corridor and Muskosipi Park specifically. And what we'd like to do is work with elders in our community, local elders, people of Beaver, Métis, Cree, and Dene heritage, and gain their trust to use pieces of their stories as an educational jumping off point for our community to access in an outdoor space. So we envision this as looking like small pieces or plaques or art or something in the Bear Creek corridor that I could walk to with my children. This is kind of intended for families and really anybody who's wanting that information. I think there is a need in our community for this information, but it's really hard to find, and rightfully so. These people have often hid their stories away because they weren't well received. And I think we're kind of coming to that new wave of understanding where we want these stories in our outdoor spaces. And there's so much knowledge to gain there. The history of Grande Prairie is very rich and deep, but often it's very one-sided. And we're getting better, but I think we can always improve. Once we know better, we can do better. So we envision this as little signs that would teach us about not only the people that lived here, but maybe some stories about the animals, or maybe some stories about traditional medicine plants. And these stories would be gathered from elders. They're not my story as an advocate, or you know, Jocelyn's story as a Métis woman. They're the elder stories that were passed to them. And we've begun the work of collecting those stories through trust gaining and trying to connect a few dots. I'm here on behalf of my friend Victoria. I don't speak for the Beaver people. I am an advocate. That's my role. That's what I like to do. So I never want to center myself in this conversation as a non-Indigenous ally. I just really have an interest in seeing these histories visible. And we would really like to also create some connection between the outdoor spaces in the county and the outdoor spaces in the city. So there's some continuity. So we've also proposed this to the county as well. And we think it not only meets the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but also creates some walking the walk of anti-racism work for the city of Grande Prairie. So maybe Jocelyn, if you want to speak about your art pieces that go with it.
Sure. So I'm Jocelyn Dewick. I'm a Métis woman. I've been born and raised in Grande Prairie. And yeah, this all kind of begun, I was wanting to maybe write a book or something for my children just about the Grande Prairie area, animals, plants. And so basically my role would be the artist coming up with images that go with different stories and different animals and plants that are local to our area, and just kind of integrating things for children and adults and just kind of making it a really fun thing to learn and know.
So yeah, that's our project. And our kind of idea is where there's visibility or kind of access of stories, there's value. And I think as a teacher, I see immense value in if I take my class to Muskosipi Park and we can engage in Indigenous teaching and Indigenous history just by walking through the park. I think that has immense value, not only as a teacher that I've taken my classes to Muskosipi Park, or I've been down there playing at the park, like how our city revolves around that area. And I think it would be such an easy access point to add a few things in there. And I don't think it would take much. I think there's lots of things we could do. And we've kind of begun that work. I guess what we're asking for today is we'd love to kind of figure out how to work together and move forward together. In the interest of kind of this promotion of visibility and being good advocates.
Great. Well, thanks very much for the presentation. I imagine there'll be a number of questions. Your presentation materials did make it into our council agenda, and so all council members have had a chance to see that as well. Councillor Thiessen, looks like you were first in the queue.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Given, and thank you very much, Kate and Jocelyn, for this for bringing this presentation and hopefully this project to City of Grande Prairie, Muskosipi Park, Muscote Park, and other parks that are potentially around here. I guess my question for either of you, maybe Kate, actionable allyship. So part of that is advocacy, part of that is saying, yeah, you can use our land, but what role do you foresee the city playing besides maybe allowing you to use the park space?
I foresee the city as being kind of like a good ally, just putting their weight behind this in terms of, bringing Indigenous elders into the spaces where our community gathers and where we say has value, and we say your story has value. And so I guess more so it's the joining in the ally work, in that the city does a great job of like, we support you, but we'd love to see the on the ground work, some of that that actionable stuff. So for the city, for me, it would be the money behind the signs. Like Joss and I are like average people. I have no idea how much it costs to put these things in. So I don't know if there's like a committee that works on these sort of things. So we're just kind of, we love this project. We've begun the work, but we're kind of unsure of where we go next. And we were hoping that by presenting to you guys, you could direct us towards people, direct us, because there's no diversity and equity council, but there's an art council. And so I don't know if this falls under the art council or where it would fall, but yeah, we were hoping for some direction or help, maybe that's the word.
Yeah, so Councillor Thiessen may have some of the same suggestions I was going to have, so go ahead, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways. Actually, in our 4-year strategic plan, Council came to an agreement that we wish to honor our Indigenous community, other cultures, and the diversity of Grande Prairie and the region through the development of initiatives to promote inclusiveness and pride in our community. And I guess cultural history kind of fits in that as well. I think there's special project grants for the Arts Committee that you might be able to apply for this through.
Okay.
We also have sponsorship programs as well. You can apply for up to $2,000 without having to come to a council decision.
Okay.
But yeah, there's other avenues too. I'll let Mayor Given throw in a couple as well. It looks like he had a couple ideas also. So, thanks.
Yeah, no, I guess just in terms of developing your concept, one would be, you know, if there are other community partners that might have worked, you know, through a formal process like this. It sounds like the two of you have a great idea that you're passionate about. You may want to see if there's an organization like the Métis Local. They are, you know, we work with the Métis Local often as the city. There is also the Circle of Aboriginal Services, which is sort of a collective of different First Nations and First Nations serving organizations. The City of Grande Prairie has a memorandum of understanding between our organization and the Circle of Aboriginal Services. You might also want to look at some of the not-for-profit organizations like the Rotary Clubs in Grande Prairie, who have done a lot of work, and the Friendship Center, as Councillor Thiessen showing. So there's a number of different organizations that I think you could probably partner with that A, know how to do a project, and B, may have additional funding sources that would be able to support you. Councillor Thiessen was exactly right on the arts development grants. There's a number of different ones that might be applicable. You could also look at this through parks development and parks enhancement grants. And neighborhood associations might be another good community organization to partner with. Grande Prairie's neighborhood associations have access to a pot of money that is available just to neighborhood associations. And so I saw in your proposal, you looked at a number of different parks across the city in different areas. Many of them are adjacent or in neighborhood association areas. So those would be other organizations would be really good to partner with. I think ultimately for me, and I don't know about my colleagues on council, but you know, we would typically see something that is a more specific proposal of, hey, City of Grande Prairie, we need A, B, and C from you because we want to do this entire thing. And so that is, that's probably where we would be the most help. Yeah, I think all these other sort of channels that we've set out are advice and opportunities that exist. We don't have a really good system for council anyways to be helping build the projects necessarily.
Oh no, we don't want help building. That part we're already doing. That part I don't need help with, you know. It's more the like, how do I guess moving forward, if we're doing this work and I'm collecting these stories and working with, like, we are trying to work through some places, but the traditional people of this area are Beaver people, and their stories don't exist at friendship centers. They don't have a Métis local type of thing, right? The Beaver people are spread quite far and wide, and their stories are quite hidden, and their elders are far and few between. So in terms of Muskosipi, like the traditional first peoples that lived here were Beaver peoples, and everyone else, according to South Peace Regional Archives, according to all documents show, everyone else came with fur trade or slightly before it. So when we talk with Métis Local, their stories are amazing. We love them. We want to include them, but we're looking for the filling in of the gaps of the Beaver histories. And we want all of the stories, Métis, but specifically there is like nothing collected right now for Beaver history of this area. And I think that's part of the big part is knowing that if we move forward with this project that, and we, work on it, that there will be some collective work with the city. That's kind of maybe more specific.
Yeah, I'm sure the city would be happy to be a partner. A lot of the organizations you referenced, we work with on a regular basis, including South Peace Regional Archives that the city funds and actually is located, at the city. We do have our a department that works, closely with those cultural organizations. And I think, and this might be something that would be best, any one of our council members actually probably be happy to work with you on helping build out a concept and identify some of those spots that you could go.
Awesome. Joss and I are also, sorry, I should have mentioned this before. Joss and I are also part of an Indigenous committee through South Peace Regional Archives that helps build into Indigenous perspectives into what they're creating or what they put forth. So maybe I should have also said that.
Yeah. Any other questions for the delegation? It doesn't look like I have anybody else with any additional questions. So it's a pleasure to hear from both of you. Now, so there wasn't, I'm just hesitant to let you go because there wasn't a request, can the city do this? And absent that, I think you got some advice from council members, myself, Councillor Thiessen. I think many or most of us would be happy to have a discussion with you offline about how you could make this a little bit more of a specific request. So I don't want to end the meeting with you saying, well, what happened? Because right now there's no sort of formal council motion to go and do anything. But I would make that offer though, that perhaps you could have a discussion with myself or Councillor Thiessen, who's shown an interest. We also have our council representative at the South Peace Regional Archives, but maybe we can have an offline discussion about how we could actualize your proposal.
I would love that, actually. Yeah, that would be really useful. So.
Okay.
Can we just send you an email to set that up, or?
Yeah, so what we'll do is I'll ask somebody from administration to follow up to get your contact information, and I'll follow up with you.
Awesome. Thank you for hearing us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to both of you for attending this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, and I will look to the city clerk. Were there any additional delegations that wish to present this afternoon in our open delegation section?
Thank you, Mayor Given. There are no others identified to speak at this open delegation portion.
Okay. So before we move on into unfinished business and reports then, I just will note, Councillor Clayton, you said that you were having a difficult time connecting, and during the minutes, there was actually something you wanted to highlight.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Given. I just closed the last meeting agenda. However, on item under policy 100 in regards to council remuneration, I had voted in favor of this and had voted incorrectly. Didn't realize till we moved on, but I wanted it to be noted that I did not support the changes to this policy, and I just wanted it noted in the minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. We'll make sure to capture that and appreciate everybody sort of sticking with us through the technology challenges. And we'll move on through our agenda. We had no items under unfinished business, and that would take us to item 7.1, COVID-19 Public Information Campaign. Director Bork.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Council had directed administration on August 10th to bring forward a public information campaign to inform residents about the appropriate use of face coverings in indoor spaces on a voluntary basis. So we've spent the last couple of weeks researching what other municipalities and other organizations around the world are doing as a best practice to move these campaigns forward. Three key themes that we found and we're suggesting we highlight in the initial phase are how to properly wear a mask, information about how mask use protects others, and communication of the importance of social distancing and washing hands in addition to wearing masks. So from that, we've developed a campaign that is ready to launch immediately should council wish to proceed, that would reach the broadest audience possible within the community, and I'm happy to say within the region. We've worked with the county over the past week, and they have come on as a full partner in moving this campaign forward in the development, as well as in paying some of the costs for us to proceed with this. They will also expand our reach from beyond the city borders into the county as well with some of the material. So we're very excited about that. Like I said, phase one is ready to launch immediately. It's focused on raising general awareness, the proper use and benefits of mask use, washing hands, and social distancing. And so I ask Council to approve proceeding with the implementation of the proposed COVID-19 public information campaign.
Okay, thanks very much, Director Bork. Any, well, first I would look for a motion and then we can get into discussion debate. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council approve proceeding with the implementation of the proposed COVID-19 public information campaign. And just to speak very briefly to the motion, I think it's quite comprehensive. I'm very pleased to see that the county and the city are cooperating on this promotion. And I think it's extremely timely, and the sooner the better. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Any other discussion or debate? I will just ask, I see the rest of you. Director Bork, I just wonder if you could identify in building this information, we don't have epidemiologists or public health officials and City of Grande Prairie staff. And so can you just identify where administration went to get the information that you built the campaign around?
Thank you, Mayor Given. The campaign is built around messaging that the Chief Medical Officer of Alberta has utilized in her press releases as well as in her public statements. So it's based on Alberta government information from the Chief Medical Officer. Looking at what information would be important, we have done some consultation with the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Association as well, just looking at how we can broaden the reach in information that would be useful to the business community as well.
Okay, thanks, Director Bork. Okay, so I saw Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Bressie, and then Councillor Clayton. Councillor O'Toole?
Yes, I want to thank the administration for going through all the hard work and letting us look at a possible ways of going forward. And I just want to give them heads up that you got my approval on this. Nobody wants to be forced into doing anything. I understand that, I really do. But I think this is for the betterment of the region, not only just the City of Grande Prairie. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Bressie, then Councillor Clayton.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. My apologies for having to ask this, but I've had to run up and down my house stairs about 3 times this meeting to reset my router. And I missed the staff introduction to this, but I have read the written report. Are there any significant revisions that I should be aware of that were mentioned in that before we vote?
I don't believe so.
No, just I highlighted that the county are full partners in this campaign.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. In that case, yeah, it's got my support. I really do think that there's a lot of noise out there, and I think it's really important that we're listening to our health experts at the provincial level and doing our best locally to boost what they say. I think that throughout this whole last 6 months, the City of Grande Prairie really has looked towards not introducing its own initiatives, but boosting provincial initiatives. And I think that's the case of, that's what I see this campaign doing. It's doing what I hear Dr. Hinshaw and our other technical experts saying we should do and just helping boost that a little bit. So I think it's similar to the approach the city's been taking this whole time, and therefore I support it.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Councillor Clayton. Councillor Clayton, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Similar comments. I appreciate the work that was put into this. I did have some, they're very specific comments on the examples that were shown. I really like the graphics that show how to safely spread. I have a couple concerns with the ones that are very specific in that state masks for each other, and my mask helps protect you, and your mask helps protect me. I don't want any of the creative to imply that masks are mandatory. This is not a discussion on masks being mandatory. This was intended to be a campaign on educating people how to wear a mask and the benefits of wearing a mask. So I have some concerns in regards to anything that indicates that council has made a decision on masks being mandatory. At this point, masks are still a personal choice. And this campaign, in my opinion, was truly meant to be a informative piece and not imply any direction. So I just wanted maybe for that to be known. and be cautious with the messaging on this, because there's, at this point, no direction from council that masks are mandatory. And, as we both know from one of the delegations today, and it's still through continual emails, we are getting comments and feedback from the community. But, just for the public understanding that at this point, masks are not mandatory, this campaign is truly just intended to be an educational piece. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Any other discussion? Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'm just going to echo Jackie's comments, especially on the masks for each other. When I was going through the report, that was the first thing that pops up in the attachments, and it really seems to me to be like that's the way that these posters read out, that we're encouraging this and that we've made that decision. I do like the idea of showing people how to wear their mask properly, because I see a lot of that going around our community where people are wearing the mask because they have to wear the mask or they feel they should wear the mask. But after a while, they get uncomfortable, they pull it down under their nose, they let it hang off their ears, they put it under their chin, and it's not really doing anybody any good there. But I can be okay with this campaign. I just don't know how I feel about the first page about the mask saying that we're doing it for each other. I think that's presupposing that we've made the decision, and I wouldn't be comfortable releasing that prior to any decisions being made. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. If there are any other comments, I can save mine for closing.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm just going to speak to, I'd like to speak to this. I think administration's creative here, I guess, the visual, first off, has been vetted by both our administration, county administration, and is based on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So, we're not saying anything that somebody else hasn't already been saying in the province of Alberta. The other thing I think that the other observation would be that the idea here, as I understand it, is my mask isn't to protect me. I don't wear a mask to protect me. I wear a mask to protect somebody else. And this is one of the biggest misunderstandings that I think we've heard as council, certainly that I'm hearing out in the community. Our presentation at council, our previous council meeting, was from somebody who works in industry who really seemed to be taking a view that the mask, use of non-medical masks wouldn't protect the wearer of the mask. And I think they're 100% correct. That's not my understanding, the intention. The intention behind the use of non-medical masks is to prevent the wearer from unknowingly spreading COVID-19 and to slow the spread of COVID-19. So I think the message is actually 100% accurate based on everything that I've been hearing from Dr. Hinshaw. The mask is a measure that we can each take to help protect others, in spite of the fact that they are not medical grade appliances that are intended to filter all air coming into my lungs. It's intended to stop the spit that goes out of my mouth and into the air. Certainly, so I think that the line that says masks for others, or my mask helps protect you, I think is exactly what the medical advice is telling us. And so therefore I support it. Councillor Bressy, I see you in the queue, and Councillor Blackburn will come back to you to close eventually.
Yeah, thank you. I guess for me, I hope that this campaign and the message that people take away from it isn't just an encouragement to wear masks. For me, it's even more importantly the education about how properly to wear them. I was in a meeting last week where there was one gentleman in the meeting who chose to wear a mask and also had a bit of a cough and kept on taking the mask down to cough into his hands, then putting it back up. And that's a gentleman that, if I'm listening to the advice, the more important advice that he should have been hearing from Dr. Hinshaw was stay home if he was sick. And I didn't really see the point of wearing that mask with the way that he was doing it. And I think that there is an important part of, I'm also hearing from Dr. Hinshaw saying that there is some risk with masks if you're not wearing them properly. For example, if you're not washing them regularly, if you're not washing your hands before you put them on and take them off, if you're touching them constantly, there can be some increased risk there. And masks, most certainly, what I'm also hearing her say is masks don't replace social distancing, and we can't be. And it's not about just masks are kind of the last resort. And I think that what I'm seeing in the community, what I'm hearing in the community is there's a lot of people that are not wearing masks properly and not understanding what they do. And for those people, it's they get points for trying, but it's unfortunate that what they're doing might be actually counterproductive. And so I really hope that the takeaways of this campaign is also for those people that are voluntarily wearing masks. Oh, here's the ways that I do that to actually make it worthwhile and make it actually protect the people around me.
Thanks, Councillor Russi. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I have similar concerns to Councillor Thiessen and Councillor Clayton as well. I like that my masks help you, your health, but it kind of precludes that we're saying that masks are going to be mandatory. I don't know why both of them need to be public health services saying, but I don't know how we can achieve the same thing with just saying my mask protects you. I don't know why we need to look back that as soon as the other person has to wear a mask to protect me back. And so I'm struggling with supporting it, and I know it seems silly, but I want to support this in principle, and I'm struggling with supporting that because I do think it kind of precludes a mask violence. I don't think that's where we want to go with this. We want this to be about the education, and if the education is about my mask helping you, I don't think we need to loop on that one. So it's something I'm struggling with a little bit.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Any other discussion? I will, I'll make an observation. Well, this is one of the sort of leading questions. Director Bork, is there any reason why this isn't branded with the City of Grande Prairie and uses generic branding?
Thanks, Mayor Given. Yes, our original intention was for this to be branded with the City of Grande Prairie. We have a lot of credibility in the community and had intended to go that way. As we were looking at other partners likely coming on, it reduced the likelihood that they would join if it was a city campaign. So it was a trade-off between using our credibility and broadening our reach by having further partners come on board. One area that will be branded is our particular social media content will be City of. But to get this first initial phase out the door with the most partners, we decided to go with non-branding.
Thanks, Director Bork. And I didn't see anybody else in the queue. I would go to Councillor Blackburn to close.
Thank you, Mayor Given. And if I may ask one question that just occurred to me before I close. I see that the initial phase of the campaign is going to include radio and print. I'm wondering if that means that there are messages other than those that show up on the signage that we'll be delivering.
Director Bork?
The print ads were intended to be based off the campaign that's presented in front of you. There are some scripts that we've been working on and having a discussion with the county that are aligned with this. So if there was, the intent was for us to propose the campaign, to have a little bit of freedom to evolve as we get feedback from the community. So if there was certain elements of the campaign that were not preference of council, us having that feedback now would be useful. But this wasn't to be all of the campaign approved of by council. It was to get a sense of the support for the direction.
Thank you for that. So just in closing, Mayor Given, I appreciate the comments that you made about the need to wear masks. And I'll just reiterate that I think one of the largest misconceptions out there is that people wear masks to protect themselves. And there is, of course, lots of evidence that indicates that masks are not very effective for that. But they are very effective in, as you say, stopping the spit from getting out into the air, so that if somebody is sick without knowing it, in other words, asymptomatic, they could be spreading the virus unknowingly. And to Councillor Clayton's point, this is indeed an education session or education initiative, and I do believe that a very important part of that education has to be to allow people to have the understanding of that fact that wearing a mask is for the protection of other people. I can tell you that I have personally received messages that say things like, you know, it sucks that you're the guy that would be susceptible to an infection. And really the thing that you ought to do is just lock yourself away and stay away, because we don't want to see people spending across the world billions of dollars on PPE to protect the few people that are going to die. I don't think that's a very civilized way to look at things. And I think that any education that we can provide within the community that says we're out to protect one another is an okay kind of message for us to be delivering. I don't see an implication in the signage that says, hey, we're mandating this. We're asking for people's cooperation so that perhaps we don't have to mandate this. But it's going to take a tremendous amount of education for that to happen, because there seems to be a very large multitude of people who just don't get it. So I would encourage council to approve this campaign and give the administration the ability to allow it to evolve as needed. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. With that, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay, I see 5 in favor and opposed. I see 3 opposed. That motion does carry. And that'll take us, I think, into our regular committee business, and starting with item 8.1, the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, just give me a second here, sir. Thank you very much for letting me speak. We have 8.1. Here we go. I left my iPad at the office, so I'm running everything through my phone here. So I recommend that council adopt the minutes of the bylaw and Policy Review Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions we need to correct before it's adopted? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
I have a few other items here, Mayor Given. We have Policy 124, Bylaw and Council Policy Review Policy. Recommendation is Council approve Policy 124, being the Bylaw and Council Policy Review Policy as presented.
Okay. And thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Do you want to speak to it?
I actually have Arlene Karbaczewski, our city clerk, and she's been involved in this project, and it's sort of a red tape reduction process. And if Ms. Karbaczewski would like to just give us a rundown on exactly what it's going to mean in the future.
Okay. Arlene?
Thank you, Mayor Given. So the intent of Policy 124 is to formally add a standing item to each one of our standing committees for official bylaw and policy review. And the intent is to ensure that bylaw and policies are being reviewed on a timely basis. The Bylaw and Policy Review Committee was struck last year, and through the work of this committee, it was determined that it would take approximately 5 years for the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee as a standalone committee to be able to do a full and complete review of all current bylaws and council policies. So administration was directed by this committee to go back and have a look at how perhaps we could think of being a little more efficient and lean with this process. And so administration came back with research to support that by separating and sharing this workload among our standing committees, an actual full and complete bylaw and policy review could be managed within 2 years. So the intent of this policy is to assign that work to each one of the service areas and having it added as an item on a standing committee agenda. And the savings amount to, they amount to a reduction in red tape. So instead of taking 5 years to complete a full review, we have managed to show that we can be successful in completing this work in 2 years. There are some other savings that we can identify with regard to administration hours and the sharing of that workload by the standing committees. For example, approximately 598 hours, administration hours, could be saved by transferring this work to the standing committees. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Great. Thanks very much, Ms. Karbachuski. Any questions for administration? Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Not a question, just more of a thank you to administration for doing this. I think this is a great step for our council to set up for even future councils. It gives a chance. I'm not a guy that lives in the policy space, and it's not maybe my forte, but it does give you an opportunity to look at every policy the city has within your term, which I think is very important for our council and future council. So I think this is a great change, and I really appreciate you bringing it to our attention and then making the switches that were necessary that we're going to vote on here today.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Platt. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, I'll just put in my 2 cents again. One of the things that when we look at the reviews of the policies, sometimes it's just a simple wording and it needs to be updated with the current terms that are being used. So it might take maybe 10 minutes to review it. Other policies are incredible long, where we have a lot of research done, and then we have to debate how we want to word it in the policy. And we have Ms. Karbachuski giving us proper, let's say, terminology to be used, so it's legal. We have to meet legal requirements. So it is sometimes can be very drawn out process. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, I also think that, thank you. I also think that a benefit of this is for new incoming councillors. I think it took me a good 6 months to realize that, oh, everything the city does happens through bylaw and policy. And in terms of, you know it intellectually, but it takes a few times actually being pointed out, well, here's the policy, here's the policy, here's the policy. And then it took me a long time to actually get through all of the policies that we had as a city. And I think a real benefit of this is having all of our policies hit review over a council term. I really think will be a huge benefit to incoming councillors as well, just helping them learn, oh, here's the reason why the city does things. And there's actually thought behind behind almost everything the city does. And that thought is often laid out in policy. And often it doesn't make sense until you actually read that policy. But once you read the policy and the justification behind it and all the things it's connected to, quite often something goes from not making sense at all to making a heck of a lot of sense. And sometimes you look at the policy and you still go, well, that's still a dumb way to do it, but now I know how to fix our approach to it, because it's this policy right here is what's been causing all the problems. And I really think that there'll be real benefit to incoming councillors to have this to have everything hit their agendas throughout the term. So I'm excited to see this coming before us, and I hope the council passes it.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, got one more. So with that, there will be a designated time in the committees for dealing with just the bylaws. So everybody will have a designated allotted time in the committee. So the next item I have is council. I make a motion to have council disband the bylaw and policy review committee and direct administration to establish standing agenda item for bylaws and policy review on each of the council standing committees. Like I said, this will be something that will be added to each agenda every 2 weeks for every standing committee, and we will be looking through the policies and reviewing the bylaws, and everybody will have their 2 cents in, or maybe $1's worth in at every meeting. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Toole. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would just like to express my concern that this may extend committee meetings by a great many minutes or even hours when 4 committees are going to be going through this exercise every time that we meet. I'm just not sure that it's the way to go. I appreciate it will save a lot of time for a dedicated committee, but wow, it might be quite an addition to the workload of the standing committees. And so if this does pass, and if we do start to do it this way, I hope we will again have a look at the concept of having all of our standing committee meetings on the same day with everybody attending. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Certainly something to watch. My observation would be that this term, our council committee meetings have actually, in a lot of ways, gotten shorter as council has delegated a certain amount of authority to administration. You know, from my previous years on council, a lot of committee meetings, particularly public works or infrastructure-related committees, had to do with a lot of tender awards and RFPs. None of that business comes to council. And many organizations that I sit on, governance best practice is to have a regular review of board policies. We are the board for the City of Grande Prairie, and my experience has been that we have had an irregular review of council policies. It seems like every few years or every couple council terms, there's a desire to review policies, which is good. But I think best practice is to ensure that all policies are checked on some kind of regular cycle. This policy really allows us to do that. And if we find that we or a future council finds that the time commitment is too much, then obviously we could adjust if needed. This is a good example of how policies govern the work of council and the work of the organization. The adoption of this policy kills a committee in the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee, which is pretty great. But also will set the work that will guide the next council. And if the next council wishes to change it, they'll have to change the policy. Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think that's a very valid concern that Councillor Blackburn has in terms of I'd hate to see other work be done less well because meetings get rushed because of that. And I think it's definitely something that those of us who are on the next council will have to keep a close eye on and perhaps provide advice to the next council if it does get in the way. But the one thing I will point out is I would expect that for a lot of these policies, it won't take that much time to review. I'd expect for a lot of policies that there'll be a lot of, most policies are kept up to date and don't need significant revision. I think there'll be a lot of motions to receive for information in this or whatever the equivalent practice that comes out of this is, where just because it's on the agenda and just because everybody took a glance at it when they read their agenda, that doesn't mean that there has to be a long discussion at every committee meeting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor O'Toole to close.
Yes, just let everybody understand that there are some committees that have a lot of policies and reviews, policies and bylaws, and there are a number that don't have that many at all. So it may sound like a real burden, but for instance, there will be some that maybe have a total of maybe 40 policies. It's going to take not very long to go through, and when they're done, they're done. And the other ones might be only 15, and the other one could be 60 different bylaws or policies. So it won't be that we're going to spend the equal amount of time on each one of these committees reviewing. You may be done within a half a year, basically reviewing the policies for that current year. So it will be up to the discretion of the city clerk to provide these bylaws and policies and make sure that we are going to meet some kind of a timeline and not have 3 of these things that are going to last an hour apiece. So I got assurance that that's going to be reviewed before they come and make it the agenda. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Then we'll call for the vote on, just to make sure I'm following along properly, item 8.1.2, which is disbanding the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. And Councillor O'Toole, good job on getting chair of a committee and killing it within like 3 or 4 meetings. Well done.
Well, I'm not saying that everybody should do it, but the feeling is good knowing that you reduced a pile of red tape and saving the city a lot of money and the taxpayers. So this is a team effort, and thank you for the team that's in administration, and thank you for my colleagues that were on the board, or the committee. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. I think next is Pursuit of Excellence Committee. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I just make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Pursuit of Excellence Committee held Wednesday, August 12th, 2020, as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Platt. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Platt, anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, a couple of things actually. We gave away a little bit of money and had some good conversation around the second one we funded. So the first athlete we funded for was Liam Tinworth for biathlon for $1,000 for athlete development. And then we had $500 for travel funding to Ryder Topolinski around bareback and saddlebrook, which brought up an interesting conversation about us maybe updating our terms and references of what is a sport nowadays and what qualifies for some of our programs. And so some good dialogue around that, and we'll be updating a postcard for review that obviously if we made any changes with this committee and how we did the terms of reference, it would have to come to council, but that's what this committee is reviewing currently. And then we had 2 applicants that we deferred to the Arts Development Committee because they didn't quite fit our criteria, but we felt it might fit their criteria. So with that, that was our meeting.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Platt. I think that takes us then into the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee and Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move the council adopt the minutes of the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 18th, 2020, as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Bressie, go ahead.
Great. I would move that council approve an expression of interest process to explore the sale of the approximately 17.83 acre parcel of land described as Plan 062-3325, Block 1, Lot 8, as shown in Attachment 1, with the resulting opportunities presented for council consideration. And just for any members of the public watching, this piece of land is along Resources Road, between Resource Road and the train tracks, just north of 68th Avenue. And what this process would happen if council approves this is our administration would have a process to ask if there's anybody out there that wants to buy this land, and if so, what they might do with it and how quickly they might do that. And this next part might be a bug or a feature depending on your perspective, but if somebody does say, yeah, I'm interested in that land, there would be no obligation for council to put it up, to put it on the market and sell it. This is just us doing a little bit, if this gets approved, just doing a bit of early exploration in terms of, is somebody interested in it? So should we consider selling it at a later date?
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Open for discussion and debate on the motion. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question for administration, just so I can understand the process of this. So if we went out and did an expression of interest and somebody, proponent come forward with a great idea, what would happen next if we wanted to actually sell them the land and would it have to go through a public process? If they can explain just how that would look for me, that would be great, please.
I see Mr. Sheldon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Given. So through the expression of interest, we're not obligated to do a formal request for proposal after. So the expression of interest does really does that. It collects an expression of interest, and from there we do have the ability to negotiate directly with that proponent. So we negotiate directly with them or with another proponent, or we can go through a formal RFP process.
Okay, so if the proponent had an application that we liked, or that was deemed through administration as a good one, it would come. Would that land have to go up for RFP then, or would this be basically, we like the idea, we want to deal with this proponent, and council has that discretion?
That's right. It's entirely at council discretion. So any opportunity that would be deemed a viable opportunity would come back to council for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Councillor Platt, I think what you're getting to is, is there an additional sort of risk of an additional required process afterwards? And I think the answer there was no. If there's an acceptable offer or an interesting offer, council can negotiate directly without having to start another public process to make that marketable. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? I think I had Councillor Thiessen, then Councillor Clayton.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Just a question for administration. Of this 7-hectare parcel, 2 hectares of it is designated wetlands, of which under the provincial wetlands management policy, they wouldn't be able to develop. So I guess just out of curiosity, out of that 7 hectares, are we charging, or the assessed value of the property says it's $1.275 million. Is that including the wetlands? Or is that not including the wetlands? I know that's in the box, but.
Mr. Sheldon?
Right, so yeah, so that does include the entire area, including the wetlands. And then there would be a process in place throughout the negotiation to subdivide as necessary that wetlands area.
Okay, so if the wetland area is unusable or has to be maintained, wouldn't that bring the value of the property down altogether, or?
Mr. Sheldon?
So thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Actually, I'm seeing Mr. Halliday was having some tech issues. He's back, and this is maybe his expertise.
Sure, absolutely. We'll refer that to the right resource. Mr. Halliday?
I'm also seeing Mrs. Donnelly there as well. I'm not sure if she wants to tune in. Sorry, the question again was?
How would the wetland area affect the value of the property? So
the wetland is included in the valuation currently. But through subdivision and negotiation with a proponent, we could look to remove the subdivision, which would alter the overall price of the land.
Okay, yeah, I think that answers it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I think I had Councillor Clayton next.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I just wanted to talk about the process of, the letter of intent, the process of expression of interest. And my concern, I guess, is with the overall direction of this. I know at committee level we talked about the fact that administration did not have a plan for this land. We talked about that, this process in turn absolutely can give an opportunity for the information, for ideas to come back to council, and then in turn we could choose not to sell it. I think that there's an opportunity here for us to sell this piece of land. I think that, and I'll just speak a little bit, and then I'm just working through it in my head, but I think I'm going to amend the motion, and I'll be looking for support from council. My thought process here being, we don't have a plan for this land. If the land were to sell based on market values today, which council and industry may feel is below what it would normally sell, or what it would have sold for 2 years ago, or what it might sell for in 2 years, if the selling of this land creates an opportunity for a developer or somebody to invest in our community because the getting in price was less than normal, then I think that's a win for us as well. We don't always have to hang on to land and always wait for what we think we're going to use for it. Sometimes there are opportunities to buy land that we use and build great things in the future. Sometimes we think it's a great opportunity at the time, but we need to be okay that we don't need it anymore. So for me, I like the idea of the expression of interest to see what's out there, but on this specific parcel land, I see no need to keep it. So I would like to amend the motion, and I'm just looking back in the committee minutes. So I would like to amend the motion that council approve selling of the approximately 17.83 acre parcel of land described in Plan 062 as noted there. I don't know if the administration needs more direction than that, but the intent of this amendment on this motion is to put this piece of land for sale.
Okay, I'm going to look to the clerk because I think whenever the city disposes of land, there are some steps that are required. And I'm imagining the expression of interest process would have required those steps at the end. I think Councillor Clayton, and that's specifically making it marketable. I think there's a process where that I've seen the city use in the past where council actually has to make a specific motion to make a parcel marketable before proceeding with the sale. I don't know if that would apply here. My assumption of the expression of interest process was that we would have an expression of interest if there's something council wanted to proceed with, then we would make a motion to make the land marketable, and then we would sell the land to the proponent. What I think you're proposing is to move forward with just a open, regular market sale. And so I would just need some advice on whether we would need to have a motion to make it marketable first, and then to move on to moving forward with the sale. Because I think if it's listed for sale, highest and best price gets to the land. And I think that's what you're intending, isn't it, Councillor Clayton? Is that type of sale? Yeah, so that if that being the case, I look to Ms. Karaszewski, or if there's somebody else in administration that can help me out with that. Is it Ms. Karaszewski?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Past practice is that we do make a motion. Council makes the motion to make property marketable before it goes to sale. An expression of interest is, for lack of a better analogy, is like giving a bylaw first reading. Mm-hmm. So we don't typically go straight to third reading. There is a process that needs to be followed. This is the initial stage of that process.
Yeah. So Councillor Clayton, I think I see you, Councillor Blackburn. My advice would be to you for your amendment. I think you need to say that council identify lot, plan, whatever as marketable, and direct administration initiate a sale process for the land.
Sure, yeah, I'm fine with the change to that motion as you mentioned, and willing to speak to it after other opportunity for councillor to get.
Okay. So Arlene, do you have that proposed amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Given. So I've captured it, and please correct me, Councillor Clayton, if I haven't caught it. Moved that council amend the motion to add and identify the land as marketable and direct administration to initiate the sale of the land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, and I think Councillor Clayton's intention is to remove the expression of interest process. That's the main part, is she wants to get away from an expression of interest process.
Okay.
And move straight forward to a sale.
I can amend this motion to say, council amend the motion to strike an expression of interest process to explore the sale, and insert council approve. I'm going to have to work on that.
Yeah. So just given the difficulty of trying to amend this motion and include the idea of making, a motion intentionally making the land marketable, I think, Councillor Clayton, I think the best would be to argue against this motion if you don't support it. If the motion was defeated, then you could bring forward a different motion. I think just given the complication of trying to do that. Okay. Okay. So we'll get back to you in terms of discussion debate. And so we're going to stick with the main motion as originally moved by Councillor Russi. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I was just going to make a point of order regarding the proposed amendment. It seems to go entirely against the nature of or the spirit of the original motion, and I was going to suggest that it, if necessary, it be defeated and then replaced with something else.
Sounds like we arrived at the same idea in terms of process there. Okay, thanks. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would encourage Council to defeat this motion as noted. I think that there's numerous reasons of, and other opportunities for this land. I think that an expression of interest will take time from our administration. It also takes time from people that are interested in putting something on the land. And it may not lead to anything in the end. And so using people's, never mind the proponents that are willing to make a bid per se on what this land could be for them. It also takes time for our administration. And whereas if we have not clearly identified a plan for us, let's put this land for sale. We have other land that we think could be used for other opportunities down the road, whether it's economic development opportunities, whether it's recreation opportunities. We have other parcels of land. We don't foresee a plan on this land. If it means that somebody in turn wants to buy it and build something that in turn creates tax revenue for us, that's great. The other thing to remember that in a sale, we don't have to sell it. We don't like the prices that come back on it. We just don't accept the price. So in turn, that could be actually a quicker process than waiting for the EOI, letting developers go through it, spend time, spend money, administration evaluating the EOIs, council going through the EOIs. I think it's a much longer time span. And as we've discussed at committee level, we don't have a plan for this land. Why hang on to it? In turn, it could be revenue into our books that over time we could spend on things that we need, possibly reducing taxes, possibly doing more road overlays, whatever that looks like. It's revenue into our pockets if we sell it. But as stated, if the prices come back and we're like, no, that's way too low, then we just don't accept the price. So I encourage council to defeat this.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'm not entirely sure we should even sell this piece of land sometimes personally, but I'm also kind of, if we are going to sell it, I certainly don't want to go to expression of interest. I think, especially when you have a wetland on there, so we get a great idea, comes forward, the proponent thinks they've done their homework. Wetlands are an interesting thing to try to deal with, and not everybody fully understands them. And so I think it's kind of a buyer beware thing, but I don't think expressions of interest fully protects the city when people have done it. I also don't like the idea if somebody has done a bunch of diligence and spent a considerable amount of engineering work when you're trying to deal with wetlands. They spend a bunch of money, they come to us and we say, no, I don't like the egg on the face that could create for the city. I think if we're going to sell it, we sell it. Put a number on it, we sell it, we move on. I don't see any expressions of interest coming forward other than creating a lot of, as Councillor Clayton alluded to already, a lot of work for administration with ideas. So somebody comes with a $400,000 idea to make the best dog park in Grande Prairie that somehow they charge for. Are we going to sell it for $400,000? So now we have to have a conversation about that. If we want to sell the piece of land, let's just sell the piece of land. Don't make this hard on industry to try to figure out the rules, the regs, and they had the best idea, then it comes forward and somebody else ropes their idea, comes in with a higher bid. I don't like the process at all. I really don't. I'm not a fan of it, so I wouldn't be supporting of this at all. And I'm still not supportive if I even want to sell the piece of land.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Platt. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'm going to echo Councillor Palat. I don't want to sell this piece of land at all. I do see it as potentially being sort of a buyer beware situation for the developer, and the post-sale costs to develop the land and to engineer like water storage into the wetlands. Also, it's currently zoned for commercial arterial, so even if the wetland stays there, there's a very good chance that there's going to be extra engineering that's going to be needed by any business owner, especially with the permitted uses such as gas bar, vehicle car wash, or auto repair minor, which could directly and significantly impact the health of the wetland. I think what we need to understand is that wetlands are valuable valuable pieces of land, and whether or not we humans consider it useful or not. The things that it is doing for our community, as far as like creating an ecosystem for animals, I guess they don't pay tax, but it also holds water storage, flood mitigation, the root absorption of the poplar trees, which there's a vast amount of them, can absorb up to 2 meters of water right into their system, like right from a standstill. So that's groundwater that's not going onto Resources Road or into the rail yard. So I think the costs and expenses of potentially even developing this land could prove to be detrimental to the city in the future, or even to the developers, where we've seen where we filled in wetlands before, or we had soft soils that surround wetlands, we say that's developable. We have sunken roads that are going down. We've had roads this year simply with a high water table that started blowing up from right underneath it in some of our best areas of town and residential. So these are things that we have to be mindful of. Decisions that we make today are definitely going to impact tomorrow. And I don't know if this is the best piece of land. There's probably a better piece of land in a little more south or in other areas of the city that we could probably put up for option. And there was another one in the Montrose site that we're getting more information at our next committee meeting. But for all those reasons, I don't want to put out an expression of interest, especially knowing that I'm probably not going to approve to sell at any point for myself, as well as even just selling the land, because I think we may regret it in 10 or 15 years. So all those being said, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. For all of the reasons that Councillor Thiessen just listed, I'm more in favor of going for an expression of interest than putting the land right up for sale. I think buyer beware is something that anybody who is might be interested in the land is going to take into consideration, and they're going to let us know whether or not there is interest. If there is no interest, then we don't have to go into all of the other work that might be necessary to make the land marketable and turn around and sell it. So I would suggest that we request for an expression of interest and see if this is even a starter. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. I'll just get on the record and say that I support the motion as it is with an expression of interest because I'm open to exploring what kind of opportunities are out there and then judging those opportunities against the wetland value, the ability to mitigate those kind of issues, the intrinsic value of just seeing trees along some road in Grande Prairie somewhere, which I think some people in our community appreciate. So I'm open to considering that and seeing if there's enough sort of on balance return to the community for disposing the land. I wouldn't be able to support moving forward just with a straight sale. So for those people that are interested in moving this forward to explore the opportunities, I'd encourage you to support this motion because I'm not sure that there's enough council support to move forward with just a straight sale. And so if we want a chance to see what the market would tell us is possible here, I think an expression of interest is a great way to do that. I'm sorry, did I have somebody else in the queue? Councillor Bressie, thank you.
Thank you. I'd love to close and just say that if you support the sale of the land, I really do think that the expression of interest is the way to go. And the big reason for that is because I've got no interest in selling this land and somebody else sits on it. I think that if there's somebody who wants to buy the land and wants to develop it and wants to start contributing to our tax base and wants to give a service to the community in the near term, then I'm very open to selling this piece of land. I'm not really interested in selling it and it just sits as is for a long time. And I also don't love the idea of having a straight sale and attaching a whole bunch of conditions to that. I'd rather see what the market is and then decide if there are conditions we want to put around this. So I still don't know if I support selling this land or not, but if we are going to sell this land, then I think that this is the process to go through.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressie, for that close on the motion. So I'll call for the vote on Councillor Bressie's motion as originally worded to Council to approve an expression of interest process to move forward with marketing this land, and that any resulting opportunities would be presented to Council for consideration at some point in the future. Call the question. All those in favor? Okay, I see 5 in favor and opposed. I see 3 opposed. Okay, that does deal with that one. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the Transportation Master Plan by resolution and direct administration to review and bring back amendments to the Transportation Offsite Levy Bylaw, the Transportation System Bylaw, and the Municipal Development Plan as required.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Open for discussion debate. Councillor Clayton. Sorry, Councillor Clayton, couldn't hear you there.
No, I'm good, thank you. I was reading something incorrectly.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Bressie, if you want to intro it a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Two things to highlight to the public that might be watching, and then something that a question I'm going to have for administration. But something worth highlighting is I know a lot of members of the public realized that there weren't immediate upgrades to 92nd Street in this master plan. And that was a concern to many. And just highlighting that was also a concern to committee. And if this passes, a separate process that's going to be happening is administration was asked to bring back a report with improvements to 92nd Street between 68th and 84th, and including timelines of when those might happen. And that'll give council an opportunity outside of this plan to say, hey, we want to see improvements along 92nd Street that are needed now, aren't necessarily needed because of anticipated future growth, but are just needed because what we're seeing now. So I think that supports a highlight to the community. Also just an update to council that out of the committee conversation, there was a lot of discussion that our transportation network really both is impacted by and impacts the county. And we've asked administration to do some initial conversations with the county about what intermunicipal offsite levies might look like. So that's going to be a good conversation in the future. So those are the two things I wanted to highlight. One question I did have for administration had to do with our active transportation network. And I just didn't quite have time to do the homework I wanted to do before we got to committee to ask this question there. But a question that I want to ask administration now that I have done a bit more homework is just, this plan lays out really clear plans in terms of here are the projects on our road network that need to happen, and here are the milestones that they need to happen by. And that will really help us as we grow, create our capital budget based on this master plan. But I don't see the same level of detail given to our active transportation network, especially in terms of this report identifies gaps in our active transportation network, but doesn't talk about when those might be addressed. And so I'm just wondering if somebody from administration could give me a bit more information about how our capital planning for our active transportation network works.
Great, sure. So would we start with the director for the area? I'm not sure if Mr. Glavin is on, or maybe I'll go to the city manager to see where you'd like to send that, Mr. Galante.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Given. Oh, okay. I see Christine there. I just want to comment a little bit of the history. A few years ago, the city developed the community mobility plan with implementation of some of the items on the plan. Then the plan went dormant for a bit. So perhaps that is a time to do a refresher of the community mobility plan. But I'm not familiar with all the details in the capital plan. Probably Christine can give us a little bit more details on the community mobility plan and any plans for the future to refresh it. Christine?
Ms. Donnelly, we just don't have your audio.
Sorry about that. Through the chair. You know, we didn't get in depth in the active transportation as much as we had in some of the other parts of it. The master plan is a good start for us to dig back in and get a closer look at that information and use it as kind of a springboard to get moving again. As Horacio pointed out, we need to go back to it and take another look.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I think that that satisfies me. I think that after we're done discussing this motion, Mayor Given, I'll probably have another motion or two that I want to make specifically around this.
Okay, sure, by all means. Council, any other discussion or debate on the motion that's in front of us to adopt the Transportation Master Plan 2020? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Go ahead, Councilor Bressie.
Thank you. And just to be really clear, I made the last motion as the committee chair, making a motion that was recommended by committee. Now, this is me kind of taking off my committee chair hat and just making a Councilor Bressie motion. But that is for me. When we talk about our active transportation network, the biggest concerns me is kids walking to school. I know that probably 60% of the phone calls and emails I get about our transportation network are parents worried about their kids getting to and from school. And I know even at the council level, we've had people come directly to council about comments Crystal Lake and Avondale and a few other places. And as I was doing my homework, I noticed that there was a 2014 Get Walking plan that happened, and there were a number of recommendations for safe routes to school coming out of that. But I know that our council hasn't talked about those recommendations at all. And I'm hoping that we can get a little bit of an update on what's happened since the last time council's talked about safe routes to school. I know we've talked about it piecemeal, but I'd love us to talk about it more holistically. And so the motion I'm going to make is to direct administration to bring an update on, to bring to the appropriate standing committee an update on what has happened for safe routes to school since the 2014 Get Walking plan was introduced.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously.
Yeah,
anything
and then
further?
I think that satisfies me for today. Thank you, Mayor Given, and thank you, Council. What I will highlight out of the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee, though, is, just let me find the appropriate tab on my web browser, is, first of all, out of the Director's Service Area Update, just noting to the community that the beautification and local marketing grants, which Council approved as part of its COVID-19 economic stimulus response, those are now open for applications, and those are first come, first serve. So if you've got a business that is looking to recover and looking to grow in the next little while, then please be checking out the city website to figure out how there's some grants to help you put some local people to work helping your business out. I'll also point out that the committee had a conversation about the Montrose South site and the potential of starting an expression for interest process and seeing if there's any market developers that are interested in partnering with us to get that site developed. And didn't quite have all the information we needed in the committee report, so we directed that more information come to a later committee meeting. But that's something that I'm sure will be coming to council in the next month or two, so it's worth having a heads up about.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressie. I think that handles everything from that committee and should take us on to the Community Services Committee. I think, Councillor Clayton, you're going to step in and handle that set of minutes and the one motion for us, aren't you?
You bet. Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Community Services meeting as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
Sorry, thanks, Mayor Given. I've just lost my spot. 1 second here. All right. I would move that Council recommend amend the criteria for the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund to include operational funding for the Council-approved sport organizations to a maximum of $14,000 per organization per year. And point 2, that grant reallocation of $10,000 to the Peace Wapiti Speed Skating Club for the 2021 funding cycle. And point 3, reduce the annual allocation for the bid funding to $5,000.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, or Councillor Clayton, go ahead if you want to close.
Thanks, Mayor Given. No, I just wanted to give a little bit more background on that. For those who weren't aware, the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund was a fund created with the leftover dollars that after the games were executed. And this fund sat under sort of ownership of the Pursuit of Excellence Committee. It allowed an opportunity for organizations that wanted to access this dollars. However, the criteria being that it had to fit sport and culture. So over the years, I think the fund was only accessed twice. And so administration worked with past members of the Arctic Winter Games Committee to get some feedback as some of the councillors, myself and Mayor Given and Councillor O'Toole were involved with the games. But it was, through a lot of hard work of volunteers, et cetera, that this legacy fund was created after the games were completed. Administration consulted with various members and the community to see if the changes were going to be conducive to support, because we didn't want to feel that the Arctic Winter Games legacy was not being utilized as it had initially been set out. So the recommendations came forward after this consultation, and I think that as somebody who, with Mayor Gibbon and Councillor O'Toole, worked on the Arctic Winter Games, I think that this is sort of a great path that we're going down, and that this legacy fund can be put to good use and utilized as the committee had always wanted within sport and culture in the region. So I encourage council to support this motion.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. For that close, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Clayton, anything else that you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
No, thank you.
Thanks very much for stepping in on that one. I think Councillor Plot's next up.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I just make a motion that Council adopt a Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 18, 2020, as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Plot. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And anything to highlight, Councillor Plot? I see there's no motions rising out of this one.
No, thanks for giving it. We did have a director's service, a verbal update, and there was a couple things to highlight from that. The Ministry of Community Social Services is currently reviewing many of the programs, which includes FCSS, so we'll have to stay tuned and see what happens with that. Enforcement Services is preparing back to school traffic safety campaign, which is nice to hear. It's been a while since we talked about back to school. And we also had discussions around Bill 21 and the implications that could have on our community, which was received royal assent on July 23rd.
Great. Thanks to Councillor Plot. That'll take us to Corporate Services Committee meeting and Councillor Minhas, I believe.
Yes, I think it's my turn. So I'll move the council adopt the minutes of the Cooperative Service Committee meeting held on Tuesday, August 18, 20, as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Go ahead, Councillor Minhas.
And 8.6.1, the reserve policy change. The recommendation is council approve the update policy 346 as presented. Council allocate 3.2 million of unallocated funds into the future expenditure of reserve to be restricted for the eventually reactivate payment of the RCMP. Salary increased from 216 to 220, and that release of the payment as approved at the future of the council meetings.
Thanks, Councillor Minhas. Open for discussion and debate. Obviously, this coming retroactive pay expense is a pretty significant dollar value, and the restructuring of the reserves and preparing for that expense will help shield city taxpayers from a tax increase as direct impact from that, so a mitigating approach. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Councillor Plot.
Thanks, Megan. I guess the one that I know it's just maybe how I operate, but I'm just looking at the financial stabilization reserve, saying 5%. If I'm understanding this administration has it, that would be 5% as a minimum amount and up to 2 months. And I guess I struggle with the 2 months because depending on which 2 months of the calendar year is, it could be a very different amount of funding for the city. So if administration could maybe give me an idea of what that could look like, because I'm almost wondering if we maybe should have a 5 to 10%. So we have some goalposts there, but not having 2 months, because 2 months on the wrong cycle of 2 months could have a fairly big impact. And maybe administration could speak to, or maybe our organizations just ebbs and flows, and every month $1 million consistently. But I'm just concerned that that could have unintended consequences, and the dollar amount could be, or if it's just an average of 12 months, or how they were using that.
Sure. Yeah, I see our CFO, Ms. Whiteway, is there. Danielle?
Danielle?
So on that, we normally would look at an average approach because you're absolutely correct. We do have months where there may be higher expenditures than other months. So we would look at an average approach to that 2 months, and that is our higher end on the recommended reserve amount. That's what's already been established. So there's no changes to that particular reserve in today's revisions. So the financial stabilization reserve, that is how we've had it in the policy prior to today. And yes, it would be on an average. That's how we would look at that.
Okay. I guess for me, maybe just I like things cleaner, but I'd like to amend this motion, or just this part, to say 10% and not 2 months, so that we have between a 5 to 10% goalpost instead of 2 months. I don't know if it matters to anybody else, but for me, I like to have numbers in there, not timelines, when it comes to budgetary things. And so I just like to see this say 10% and not 2 months.
Okay, so Councillor Plott, I think the way Councillor Minhas did this was a motion to approve the policy 346, and then a motion to deal with the unallocated funds. I think your intention is to amend policy 346. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, just so it would say 5% to 10%, not 5%, or up to 24 or 2 months.
Okay. So to do that, I think we should split the motion and deal with the first part, which is council approved policy 346 as presented, and then your amendment. And so is administration clear on the exact portion that Councillor Plott is proposing to amend? I'll look at Ms. Whiteway and Ms. Karaszewski. Are you both clear on Councillor Plott's intention on which portion to amend? Ms. Karaszewski?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Because the original motion is to approve updated policy 346 as presented, I understand the intent of Councillor Plott's amendment, but if he could word it again for me so that I can catch it properly.
Okay. Councillor Plott?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Ms. Karaszewski. I would just have it that instead of it saying a minimum of 5% and a maximum of 10%, instead of it having the 20 or the 2 months, up to 2 months.
So can you just, as we're all trying to scroll through our agenda package, can you identify which page that's on, Councillor Plott, and which part exactly you're?
It's on page 2 of Schedule A. Sorry, it's on page 2 of Schedule A, under the financial. Sorry, I'm jumping back and forth there. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm jumping back here, but it's on page 2 of Schedule A, and it's just saying 5% up to a maximum of 2 months. I just rather that say up to a maximum of 10%.
Okay, so thanks, Councillor Plott, for helping us narrow down where that was in the package, so everybody can kind of see it in context. So amend Schedule A of Policy 346 to amend the recommended reserve level for the Financial Stabilization Reserve to reflect 10%, a balance equal to 10% of annual operating budget, of 5% up to a maximum balance of 10%. Right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any discussion or debate on that? Yeah. Councillor Bressie, then Councillor Thiessen.
Great, thank you. Before I share my thoughts, just a question for administration is the 2 months that's in the policy right now, what's that based on? Is that coming from from an industry best practices? Is that recommended by some sort of organization, or is that something that just the city created?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Correct. So where we've taken this from is the Government Finance Officers Association, who through their research and through looking at what municipalities may be faced with, the reasons that they've used financial stabilization reserves in the past, it's been determined that the most prudent approach is to have 2 months saved of your operating budget.
Sorry, Councillor Thiessen, I think you also had your hand up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. This is a question for Ms. Whiteway as well. Ms. Whiteway, in regards to the 2 months saved as far as our operational budget, can you just quantify that in a dollar value? I'm trying to sketch out the rough math off the budget numbers I remembered from committee. Like $30 million, $40 million around there.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Correct. So it's around 31 million based on 2020's operating budget. So we operate on approximately $188 million budget for operations. Decreasing that to 10% would mean a maximum of 18 million rather than the 31 that's recommended now.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ms. Whiteway. Going off of those numbers, I'll just put my position out there. I appreciate Councillor Palat's motion to have a more solid number, but according to Ms. Whiteway, this is industry best practice. And we knew this actually heading into this council term, that we were spending upwards of a lot of our reserves, and there needed to be a nice safe space for us to be able to operate within comfortably without putting the organization at jeopardy. And I think that 10%, although it means well, it might actually do us a little more harm than good, or at least set the bar a little too low as far as operational security. For all those reasons, sorry, Councillor Platt, I can't support your motion. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I see you, Councillor Bressie. Ms. Whiteway, can you just remind me of what the reserve's current balance is? Just trying to get a sense of how close we are to our 2 month sort of goal.
Okay, if you just, I have 2 seconds and I can grab it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the December 31st balance. So as of December 31st, 2019, which would have been our last set of financial statements, our opening balance on that one would have been 15.6 million.
So again, we're not even at half of what our goal would be, really. Is that right?
Just shy of half, correct.
Okay. Councillor Bressie?
Yeah, thank you. I can't support this motion, and I think there's kind of 2 thoughts behind it. One is changing the 2 months into a percentage. I actually really like that. I do think it's kind of weird that our policy kind of has a percentage as a minimum and a 2 months as a maximum. And if we're just making a minor change to fix that, I'm doing my math right, 2 months is about 16% of a year. So if we were to change it to maximum 16%, or even you could get me down a little bit to 15%, I'd probably support you there. But I think if we're going to lower the maximum of this reserve, I'm open to that idea. But I think that it should come through a proper process where it shouldn't just be off the napkin during a council meeting. I'd love to know. I personally have the hunch or the feeling that 15% actually probably is too high for a maximum of this. But I've also talked to our financial people, not just here, but in other cities, and I know that there probably is some good data behind why this 2 months was picked, such as the spending that other municipalities have done. And I'd love to see that information about how other municipalities have spent this money before I could get on board with lowering the maximum of this reserve. So can't support this today, could support if that maximum was higher, could maybe support lowering it in the future with a proper conversation. The one other thing that I will say is I would just point out that I know there's been appetite on some on council to lower how much we have in reserves, and I probably share that appetite. That being said, I don't think this is the way to do that, but I would point out that the other changes we're making today over 10 years will lower the reserve levels from what we've got today. So even if this amendment doesn't pass, we are lowering our reserve levels today. I think is important to recognize.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressi. I saw City Manager Galante pop in. Horacio?
Thank you, Mayor Given. In line with Councillor Bressi's comment, I would suggest that we can bring back a report with some background, historical information about why the GFOA is recommending these levels. I would caution in just establishing an arbitrary number, a percentage, whatever is 10%, 8 or 13. I would prefer to provide council with a solid background about the current best practice and why is that being recommended. And then you will have a more solid argument to discuss and potentially modify that if you wish to do that.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Galante. Any other discussion or debate? And we're on Councillor Plot's amendment. Any other discussion or debate on Councillor Plot's amendment as proposed? I'll just say, Councillor Plot, I'm not going to support your amendment. I think, hearing administration's willingness to bring forward information about how they chose that target, I would be open to supporting supporting a motion to ask them to bring that forward to a future committee meeting. I would be interested in learning about that. And if that information showed us that it was reasonable or necessary to change this, then I would support it at that time. But for right now, I'm not comfortable with the spur of the moment, what feels like a spur of the moment motion here. I would be open to exploring the issue and deciding if there was a need for action. But I'm not comfortable supporting the motion as it is right now. Any other discussion before I go to Councillor Plot to close? It doesn't look like it. Councillor Plot.
Thanks, Regman. And I'd be happy if somebody would make a motion, and I'd love to have that conversation. I guess for me is when I look at what we're going through in a community right now, we haven't even touched this specific reserve that I'm talking about, and we're worrying about making sure it gets to a higher level. So if this policy were approved, we'd actually be trying to put up to 16% of our budget into that. And to me, I think that's too much, and that's where I'm all for having reserves. I think this actually curbs how much reserves could go in. And so that's where I'm trying to have a goalpost of the minimum, which I can appreciate, but I also think the maximum. And I think 2 months, and I'm looking for this report, I think is just too much for an organization to be putting. Again, we're basically taxing people to put money in savings. And so I think there's got to be an acceptable amount of savings. And if this report comes back and shows 2 months is where it needs to be, then fine. I just would rather us be cautious on how much money we're going to put in reserves. And what my hope with this is that we just put something that's back into policy like we discussed earlier. Knowing this policy will come forward again, this will be debatable at some other point. I just would rather us put some goalposts that weren't quite as aggressive for our organization at this point. And if we over time think we need to move the goalposts forward and go up to 2 months, then great. I think that's setting us up to have potential budget increases on our taxes to just put money in savings. And that's not what I'm hoping will come with this at all. So I hope you support this because I think this will have tax implications on our budgets coming forward if we're going to want to build our reserves. I just have to question us needing that much money in the reserve that we haven't really used in this term, and we've got through COVID halfway through it, so we're through it now. So I just caution us how much we need to build reserves. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Plot. So I'll call for the vote on Councillor Plot's amendment to the original motion, which proposed, so Councillor Plot's amendment that we're voting on proposes to change the part in the financial stabilization reserve policy that references a maximum balance equal to 2 months of annual operating budget requirements to say a maximum balance equal to 10% of the city's annual operating budget. Call to question. All those in favor? Okay, I see 2 in favor and opposed. Okay, so that motion does not carry. And again, if there's any additional direction to administration, we can certainly do that after we deal with the main motion. And so we did split them so that we could do that. So we'll deal with the first part of Councillor Minhas's first motion, which was that Council approve updated policy 346 as presented. Is there any other discussion or debate on that portion of the motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Yeah, thank you. And unanimously, I believe. And then we're on to the second portion of that motion with respect to the $3.2 million unallocated funds to be restricted for the RCMP retroactive salary increase. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And were there any other motions arising from this topic? So, Councillor Platt, this would be the time if this was a topic that you're interested in digging into, a motion of referral to administration would be appropriate here.
Thanks, Senator. I will make a motion to refer to the appropriate standing committee report brought back of why the best practices would be for 24 months on our financial stabilization policy.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Platt. For 2 months, I think. Yeah. 24, Councillor Platt, if it said 24 months, I would back you on that one. Referral to administration for some background information on that. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. And opposed? Okay, I see 2 opposed. Okay, thank you. Councillor Minhas, I think you have one more motion to go here. Oh, 2 more motions to go.
Yes, 8.6.2, the Citizen Experience and Innovation Strategy CX1 Implementation Plan. Recommendation is Council direct the administration to apply for Canadian Radio Telecommunication Commission CRTC for approval, implement 311 service for the city of Grande Prairie, and to proceed with the implementation upon received approval from CRTC. I think we discussed a lot of the day, but if some other discussion, we can carry on.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote on the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Minhas, go ahead.
8.6.3, in-person city council and committee meetings. Recommended by Jackie the other day, the council discussed the zero cost option to resume in-person and council and committee meeting with us and many members as possible. I think administration is already working on it. I don't know, we do need the motion or we can carry on.
Yeah.
Up to Jackie what she wants to do. So.
Well, I see Councillor Platt, and I see Director Bork there. It is a bit of a weird motion that it's a motion for council to discuss something, which is a bit odd. So, Director Bork, do you have an update or any advice for us on this?
Just following council's or committee's discussion last week, administration has been doing some further testing on what options could look like and are making some progress. We believe that's enough direction for us to start coming up with some solutions for a mixed council Zoom meeting. We have some discussions planned here very shortly with AHS to make sure that they would comply. We would like some time to work through that option that would have not no cost but minimal cost, and that would allow for the opportunity for all of council to participate in person if they chose, while retaining the option for Zoom meetings to continue going forward. So we would ask that we think we have enough direction to proceed with looking at this pending AHS approval, which is just why I'm unable to give a firm timeline here today until that meeting happens, as there's some things outside of our control and when we can arrange some of that discussion.
Okay, thanks, Director Bork. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just wondering, I don't want to be too wordsmithy here. I'm getting a little bit stuck on a zero cost option here. I think if our organization needed to put up stuff in the East Linkside facility or any other facilities, we would have just done it. And so I'm not sure why we're looking for zero cost options. It's important for me, and I think it's important for our community that our council is working out of chambers and we're meeting. We can be safe to do that. But if there's a cost to it, then there's a cost to it. It's a cost of doing business. And our cost of our council being back in chambers is important, I think, to our community. So I don't like the wording on this thing, zero cost. And so I'd like to amend it to just say council discuss options to resume a in-person council and committee meetings with as many members as possible. I don't think a cost factor should be part of this. If it's $500 and we're not going to do it then because it's not zero cost, I think that's kind of silly. Every business in this community that's open has had to endure costs to get back to normalcy. And if getting back to normalcy is going to have a cost, I don't think that should be part of this discussion. So the motion is just to be the council discuss to resume in-person council and meetings with many members as possible and to strike that word. Having said that, I would love to make sure that when we're having that discussion, we have the option that anybody that wants to choose to retain to Zoom in, obviously can choose to retain to Zoom in. I'm not saying that everybody has to come back to council chambers. I just love the ability that if all 9 of us wanted to be present in a room, we could be. If you don't want to be present in a room, that's fine. It's completely up to you to not be present. I just think we need to give that normalcy back and show the community that we're trying to be as open for business as we can. Organizations around our city are meeting in public, and it's a little disheartening that we're still not quite there yet. So I urge you to support that amendment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. So totally fine to have the amendment removing the zero cost option. But so who's the original mover of the motion at committee?
Jackie.
No? I'm not sure who the original mover of the motion was, but the way that it's phrased right now. Okay, so the way that it's phrased right now is a motion for council to discuss. Well, we're doing that right now, so the motion is successful. So typically, council makes motions to make something actually happen. I think we heard from Director Bork that things are happening, but he can't give us a timeline right now. I think we heard him say that they are proceeding with implementing a solution that would allow for everybody to return. So, you know, we could codify that. Like we could sort of, if we want to make a motion on this topic, then we can just basically make a motion directing Shane to do the thing that he already said that he's doing. But this motion, the way that it is here, zero cost or not, doesn't actually tell us to do anything other than discuss it. So, like if we want to be doing something, then we have to tell the staff to do something, or we approve something, or we, you know, yeah. Councillor Clayton.
I'd be prepared to make a motion, and in regards to the motion that as it's presented, exactly. The intent was to have the discussion here today. The committee didn't feel that they on themselves wanted to put forward a direct motion when there was only 2 members left of the committee. As the mayor had to step out, and 1 member was also unavailable. So the intent was to have the conversation here, which we're doing. And so that in turn will allow for a motion to come out of this discussion. I'd be prepared to make a motion if there's no one else that wants to. I think, sorry, I feel like Councillor Plott started a motion, so I'll leave it there. And if not, I can come back.
Councillor Plott.
I'd be happy to withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clayton, what did you have?
I just want to formalize what Director Bork had already said. So I would recommend that council support, direct administration to come back with a report to the next Corporate Services Committee with the options and support for council meeting as with everyone in person. And as Director Bork mentioned, it'll come with recommendations from HS. So that the report come back to the next Corporate Services Standing Committee, and hopefully we'll have all that we need from HS at that time.
So I see Director Bork is on screen. I wonder if we should I think I heard Director Bork say they're working on implementing a solution that will allow us to do what council wants to do. So I don't know why we need a report on that. Like, I think he just directed.
Well, I guess the problem is, Mayor Given, is that if we don't have something formalized here, sure, there's a report coming back, but we haven't had a whole a vote of whether or not everybody on council wants that report to happen.
Yeah, no, I think Director Bork did, I don't know, I'll look to you, Shane. I don't think I heard him say that he's doing a report. I think I heard him say they're working on implementing a solution. Director Bork?
Okay, perfect.
So if I could suggest a motion that would be that administration work towards resuming in-person committee meetings with the option for video participation.
Yeah.
And I will keep the committee updated as we proceed. But I just, as I said, I don't have a timeline, and but I will keep it updated at every opportunity.
Okay. So yeah. So Councillor Clayton, are you comfortable with that? Sure.
Someone else can take it.
Yeah. Does anybody wish to make that motion? Yeah. Councillor Blackburn?
Yes, I'd be very happy to see council meeting in person wherever possible. And so I like the wording of Director Borg's motion, and so I would make the motion as he worded it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. So just so everybody's clear, that's direction to administration to go and implement a solution that would allow for all council members to attend in person in council chambers for meetings if they desire to. And we're basically just telling administration to go and do that. The only caveat is that Shane, as Director Bork mentioned, there's some things that administration is in control of in terms of Alberta Health Services giving the okay to that setup. But, okay. So this is a chance for all council to be on a position of whether or not they want to support getting back into council chambers. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Given. I'm not gonna move an amendment, but just sharing my thoughts on public participation in terms of, I'll note that that this motion speaks to council meeting. It doesn't speak to the public being able to come in person. And I'll wait till see how things shake out before I try to escalate this to the point of motion if I feel it's needed. But I just want to say that I really hope that that's at the top of administration's mind as they figure out how can we meet in person, is can we let members of the public come? And even if that means some changes to procedure bylaw where maybe we need to cap how many can participate at 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and maybe we can't do spontaneous sign up for them, they need to let us come, where I'm very open to being a lot more restrictive in how the public can participate physically so we can meet AHS guidelines. But I also understand that maybe we have a meeting where it's just council in person. It takes us more time to let the public come in as we're figuring out the council side of it. But just whatever it looks like, I really hope that public in-person participation is at the front of our mind as well as at the front of administration's mind as we figure out how to get back to normal.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Anything else coming out of this committee meeting, Councillor Minhas?
Yes, couple things. Yes, hang on. That assessment and tax administration reminding the people that taxes are due end of this month, but there are options if they cannot pay on time. And the finance, no cash has been borrowed from the credit line approved. Administration is not expecting to use it. The city will receive 8.2 million simulated funding to be used by end of 2021. Procurement 2 rapid bidding tender were issued and awarded within a 3 week period. EIS and ITS administration is working capital project for recommend serve locations. And that's about it for me.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. So that handles all of our committee business. We had no items of correspondence today. We did have 2 delegations present to council, and so I'd look for any motions arising on those. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would move that we receive both delegations' presentations for information. Speaking of that, I kind of was debating whether or not I do one action for the other. One was very informational. The other one was informational as to what they want to do. But rather than direct administration to do any work, I think it's imperative that Kate and Jocelyn make the appropriate connections within the city and the greater community, and then come back to us, and then maybe we can help them in that regard. So for now, just receive for information. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. And during that presentation, I did say that I would follow up, and so I'll ask administration to provide me with their contact info so I can follow up with them. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Given. I just wanted to talk about that project. I was having internet issues, so I didn't have a chance to chime in earlier, but I just wanted to chime in that I absolutely love to see groups coming forward and saying, here's how we're gonna improve our public spaces, and we're gonna use our own sweat and brains and social connections to improve public spaces. And any kind of improvement to public spaces people give their time and energy to do is great by my books. It's especially great though when it lets us talk about reconciliation and culture and all the other great things this project brings. So I didn't get to say it to the delegation earlier, but I wanted to say now that I'm really excited to see this proposal happening, and I'm glad to hear that it sounds like they got some great advice from council, and I'm hoping that we can see something happen in our park space.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any other discussion or debate on the motion related to delegations? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. I don't believe we have any notices of motion this evening, and so we will recess. We will return for our scheduled delegation at 6 p.m. So we've got about 40 minutes for everybody to find something to eat and get back in front of your computer screens. We'll see everyone in a little bit for our scheduled delegations and some amendments to bylaws C-1260-123 and C-1371A. Thanks very much, everybody. We are in recess. 2, 1. And welcome back to the second portion of the Grande Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2020. We are back for 2 portions of our meeting. One is the scheduled delegation portion, which we'll move to in just a second. And then we also have public hearings on a couple of housekeeping amendments to some various city bylaws. So first we'll start with our scheduled delegation. I understand that Allison Bruce wished to present to council. Allison, if you're there, I think I see your name on the screen. Would invite you to turn on your camera and turn on your microphone, and that sort of counts as joining us at the council table today. Welcome, it's a pleasure to see you. We give you about 5 minutes for your presentation and then opportunity for council to ask any questions, but welcome.
Oh, well, thank you for allowing me to join you today. I tried last week to attend and I had lots of trouble, so thank you for your patience with that. So I'm here to continue talking about the green space behind my home. I live in Old Mission. It is the green space backs onto 10A Street and Nicholas Boulevard. I did have some visuals here. I did take some pictures to show you so that you have a better idea. I did share it with Amanda, I think. Is there a way for me to screen share? I also have it in front of me here.
Yes, I think if we can ask, I'll just ask our IT folks to give you screen share possibility or capability. And once you notice that that's possible, then I would invite you to go ahead.
Okay. I think sometimes it's nice to see what we're talking about.
Sure, absolutely. So I know Director Bork is usually our host for the meetings, and so he may be the one who has to assign you that sharing capability. And does it look like we've been able to do that? Shane, I'm not getting your audio, funny enough. Oh, there you go.
Ms. Bruce should have access. If not, I do have a copy of her slides I could share on her behalf.
Okay.
I'm happy to share.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the view as you're driving down Nicholas Boulevard. This is the large green space. What you're looking at, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So in the foreground here, this is one of the main sledding hills that neighborhood kids use, as well as the school and other outdoor orienteering. Loads of people use this space. If you look off in the distance there, you can see that little red shed. That's my house. So I back onto this area. You can go to the next slide. So when you're standing in my backyard and you're looking down into this green space, this is what it looks like currently. You can go to the next one. I just put in a few pictures. You can just go to the next one. So this is from the dip looking up. And again, the dip looking up. So now we've got, you know, trees forming. This green space is one of the major reasons why we purchased this property. It's really beautiful. We had lots of visions of our kids playing here and having lots of great memories. If you go to the next screen, I just kind of jotted down, reiterating some of the reasons why I feel like we need to, you know, fight to protect the space for this community. So like I said, the schools come over here all the time. Especially with COVID, we're going to be needing to do more activities outside to keep ourselves safer. You know, kids gathering leaves for projects or looking for wildlife. There's so many uses. Throughout the summer, we have a cat. He has caught 9 mice. The mice population down there with all of this grass is I mean, in addition to it, you could argue that the winter, we had a soft winter, but the mice population is soaring. And it's those nasty little voles that carry diseases. Again, I'm going to reiterate that, you know, when we mow that green space, it's creating a fire break. The wind does come from the west. It whips up the hill towards our homes. When I hear, you know, since I've moved here, we've lived here for just over a year and a half, and I've gotten to know lots of the community members, and I hear loads of stories of, hey, it's been mowed and maintained for 27 years, and here are all the great things that this space has been used for. And it would be a real shame for that to stop. As well, one of the things that we were upset about is that we had no notification that this was happening. So, you know, that was quite frustrating. I looked online, kind of, what is naturalization? What does it look like when it's done well? And in order for naturalization, if that is the route that the city feels that they are going to go, you know, naturalization done well involves planning and thoughtfulness. And this just feels like the city walked away. So that's everything I have to say.
Thanks very much. That was a well-organized presentation. Thanks very much for making an effort to be around. Appreciate you were traveling last time we met and weren't able to do it. And obviously, you want to be well prepared, and so really appreciate that. Are there any questions for Ms. Bruce? So I don't see any. Oh, Councillor O'Toole, go ahead.
Thank you very much for being here today and expressing your concerns. Much appreciated, by the way. I did go down on a site visit, and I walked around there with my wife, and you know what? You got a little diamond there, and that's I understand why everybody is a little excited about the change. I did actually phone Mr. Chris Bowes. I think he might be one of your neighbors in that area.
Yes.
And we had a good long chat, and he said, I like talking to you, but I want you to meet the rest of my neighbors. So we got to work it out, but I will come down and have a chat with everybody. And yes, I understand it's lots of easy access to that area. It's just that it's a little dense in the grass. So we'll see what we can work out and maybe have a compromise somewhere along the line. But you definitely have council's ear. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Given.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. I guess I should also report, Ms. Bruce, that you know, one of your neighbors, Mr. Sims, was at our last council meeting. There were a couple of motions that were made with respect to that. One that was passed was that council directed city administration to bring a report to the appropriate standing committee on the status of naturalization across the city, including how sites were selected. So really that was council saying, okay, we're interested to learn more about administration's approach to this. And it was, I think, intended to be an initial step into looking into the approach to naturalization. And that initial step may lead to more discussion. I'm not making any promises, maybe exactly as Councillor O'Toole was, but that at least there was a willingness from council to learn more about this. Since it was the first time it had been raised to us by the public at that last meeting. You can keep apprised of what that report says. Obviously, we're getting towards the end of the mowing season and the summer season, and so there is a little bit of space there as we start to think about next year. But that, just so that you know, that was the motion that was passed, and council is now waiting on that report to come back.
So, Mayor Given, is there any potential or possibility that this area could be mowed so that our neighborhood kids could use it in the winter?
So at this stage, council hasn't given any administration any direction to do anything different than what they're doing right now, just to be, direct. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for the delegation? Yeah, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bruce, for coming in. I appreciate hearing from you, and I appreciated coming to get to see it with the neighbors. I know that we had a bit of a debate about it last council meeting, and I'm looking forward to future conversations. I just thought it was worth highlighting that report Mayor Given mentioned is expected to come to us on September 15th. So I just think it's worth making sure you folks know about the date. So September 15th.
Okay. And will the neighborhood be notified on or shared? Will that report be shared?
Yeah, so in terms of notification, I think that that's something I know that there are at least a couple of members of council that have taken an interest and are in contact with the neighborhood. So I would expect that, that they would be happy to do that for you. And all city committee agendas and council meeting agendas are made public the Thursday before the committee meeting. And so they are posted to the city's website, and maybe you could, one of the council members could, offer to help you and your neighbors find out where that is, but they will be posted for public review for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for the delegation? Oh. Seeing none, then thanks very much, Allison, for making an effort to on something that's obviously important to you and your family. I really appreciate the fact that you went to so much effort to get organized and to make 2 attempts to come to City Council. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, so that was our only scheduled delegation for the afternoon or the evening session. And so I guess that will take us into public hearings. And I would call to order the public hearing for amendments to to bylaw C-1260-123 and C-1371A. I would call this public hearing to order and would look to Mr. DeRoche for an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Are you seeing the presenter slide or the actual presentation?
We are seeing the presenter's slide. So if you have any notes, we would see those. Just as a caution, you may say, remember to tell the mayor. That looks like the one you want us to see.
Sorry about that. It's the challenge with the dual screen. So the public hearing this evening is about 2 amendments, one to the land use bylaw and one to the Northern Lights Area Structure Plan. These are housekeeping in nature, so generally to clarify certain points, to correct typographical or spelling errors, and to just improve the bylaws, but not change the intent. So the first amendment is to the Northern Lights ASP, and I apologize to council, but I have an as amended for this one. As I was preparing the maps for the presentation, I noticed that the numbering of the quarter section was incorrect as well. So what we have here is a section that refers to the location of some municipal reserve land, and it named the wrong portion of a quarter section. So as you can see on the maps, the area in question is the north half of 33-71-5-6. Currently, the text indicates that it's the south half of 32-71-5.6. And so we're proposing to correct that error. And as I noted, though, it will require an as amended because the numbering is incorrect in this proposed bylaw as well, simply because I hadn't realized that there was also a mistake in the numbering. There are a series of changes to the land use bylaw, and they're generally to correct errors and improve clarity. So we have some just correcting formatting, several correcting typographical errors, and then changes to designations, such as changing from secretary to clerk, and then some changes to definitions such as storage yard to improve clarity, where that definition refers to the storage of goods for wholesale, and that isn't the intent, it's just for the storage of goods. In section 72-2, the parking requirements refer to a library, whereas the term we use in the actual interpretation section is community service facility, so it's correcting that error. And then 91.2 and 91.3 is again to address typographical errors. Another correction is just to address the absence of a statement that addresses parking for multi-attached housing when no visitor parking is proposed. So this is more common in the case of row housing, where you wouldn't have common visitor parking unless it was a condo situation. And so to address this, the amendments provide standards, and the proposed standard is 2 stalls per unit. That's the same as any other single family dwelling. So it's the same as a single detached unit, a semi-detached unit, or a unit in a duplex. So it is the same standards that the development officers would apply. It's just clarifying what the standard is in that scenario. Again, there are several uses with unspecified parking requirements. When the parking requirement is not specified for use, the development officer or other development authority uses the most similar use. And so for some of these uses, it could create some confusion. And so in order to clarify the requirements for these uses, we're proposing to put in those requirements. So the first is community outreach facility. Community outreach facility simply didn't have any standards specified. The standards that are applied are the same as a personal service facility, so something like a hair salon or a tattoo parlor, where the requirement is based on the reception space as well as the actual space within the facility. For a community service facility, this is the correction of the naming of library, just so there's no confusion between the parking standards and the use that we would use on the permit. Funeral, crematory, and interment services, we apply the same standards as religious assembly, so they were included in the table in the same column as religious assembly. For permanent supported housing, no standards were specified. However, the parking requirement that would be applied is the residential care facility, so something similar to a seniors housing, where staff and visitor parking would be required, and it's somewhat limited compared to other residential uses. Because permanent supported housing requires a direct control district, there is also a clause allowing for discretion from the development authority. And then emergency shelter, there is no specified parking requirement, and to clarify that each case will be treated uniquely, it's been indicated in the proposed bylaw that this will be determined by the development authority at the time of permitting, simply because each emergency shelter can be very different in terms of what the facility looks like. Landscaping standards in the residential transition district. At the time that the landscaping standards were adopted, the residential transition district was missed for standards for apartments. So the proposed amendment adds the missing standards for apartment buildings in that district. And those standards are the same as they are for apartments in any other residential district. These amendments were communicated in the typically required fashion as all land use bylaw and statutory plan amendments. So there was circulation to internal and external stakeholders. This included the county as well as industry stakeholders such as BUILD, the Home Builders Association, and the Urban Developers Institute. There was advertising in the newspaper, and information was provided on the city website, and no questions or concerns were received. So my recommendation to council is that they have and give all three readings to the land use bylaw amendment C-1260-123, and that they give all three readings to bylaw C-1371A as amended to indicate the north half of section 33-71-5-6. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mr. DeRoche. Council, any questions for Mr. DeRoche? Okay, I have one, Reed. Can we look at the permanent supportive housing and the parking requirements for that? So I'm looking at the proposed changes. It says 1 stall per staff member with a minimum of 5 stalls. So does that, at a practical level, how does administration count staff members? Is that staff members on shift at any one time? Is that what that means?
Yes, it would be. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would be how many staff members are expected to be in the facility at a given time.
Okay. And do we have, so we had a pilot project for a permanent supportive housing facility. Did we do any analysis of how many staff members' vehicles were being used at Parkside? Like we don't have a lot of examples of permanent supportive housing facilities, except for that one. And how many vehicles were actually coming and going there?
Mr. Mayor, we did not do any analysis of the parking at the Parkside project.
Okay. I guess so that the reason that I bring this up is because I think that permanent supportive housing is something that we desperately need in the community. My hope would be that they would be relatively easy to cite, notwithstanding the work we'd have to do with neighborhoods and property owners that are adjacent. I would be concerned if we further restricted the potential for them to go in underused spots because we had too onerous a parking requirement. And so that's where I'm kind of going with this. I don't think I have a problem with all the rest of them, even the parking requirements and all the other areas. I'm a little bit concerned about this. If reality doesn't show that we have that many staff, but we have to provide a minimum of 6 stalls for any permanent supportive housing facility is how I'm interpreting it. Am I reading it right, Reed?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Given. So what I would note here is that permanent supportive housing always requires a direct control district, and this clause also does indicate at the discretion of the development authority. And so this gives a baseline of an idea of what we would typically expect. However, every case is unique and site-specific, and so there is opportunity to adjust the parking requirements for every proposed project.
So, okay, so you're confident then that if there was a good, solid argument for why parking wasn't required to this extent, that administration would have the latitude to agree to that if somebody made a good case?
Yes.
Okay. And would there be any risk, recognizing again that permanent supportive housing facilities can be contentious, would there be any risk to having these identified numbers in the bylaw? Like, would it give? I'll be really blunt. In these types of developments, it wouldn't be unheard of for somebody to find any reason to try to object. My concern is if we have some parking requirements in the bylaw that administration doesn't compel a permanent supportive housing facility to meet because there was a good rationale and good reasoning, whatever, but administration exercised its discretion, does having these numbers somewhere else in the bylaw give somebody a foothold to complain that to object to a permanent supportive housing facility or make a claim to the SDAB?
So there's a few points in relation to that. So using the direct control district, we can specify within the actual wording what we are requiring for parking and that the district-specific parking takes precedent over what's contained in this section of the land use bylaw. The second item is that DC districts are a decision of council, and so they cannot be appealed to the SDAB. And so that decision would require a higher level appeal process to a provincial court. I can't comment in terms of legal argument. In my opinion on how the land use bylaw works, I believe we're on solid ground in being able to accommodate different parking scenarios with the DC district.
Okay, thanks, Reed. Any other questions for Mr. DeRoche on I appreciate there's a number of different items here. So did anybody else find their favorite that they wanted to ask questions about? It doesn't look like we have anything else. So that'll be our opportunity for questions for administration there. I will ask the clerk, Ms. Karbaszewski, has anyone from the public intended to speak to the proposed amendments?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Administration is not aware of anyone prepared to speak at this public hearing today.
Okay, thank you. Then before I close the public hearing, one last opportunity for council members, if they have any questions for administration. Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll look for the motions arising. I think we have 2 sets of motions. And so whoever would like to start with the first, I think being 1260-123, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would move that Council give first reading to bylaw C-1260-123, being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate? Sorry, no discussion or debate on first reading. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council give second reading to bylaw C-1260-123.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you again, Mayor Given. I would move that Council have third reading for bylaw C-1260-123 at this meeting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. A motion to have third and final reading here this evening. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third reading tonight? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, we can.
Yes. All right. I would move that Council give third reading to bylaw C-1260-123, being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. A motion for third and final reading. Any discussion or debate? Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. And then we've got our second set of motions. Somebody, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council give first reading to bylaw C-1371A as amended, being an amendment to the Northern Lights Area Structure Plan.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. So that's a motion for first reading as amended, which we heard Mr. Droche say we needed to do. I will call for the vote on first reading. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I would move the Council give second reading to bylaw C-1371A as amended.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Councillor Bressie.
Yeah. I would move the Council have third reading of bylaw C-1370A at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Another one of those motions to have third and final reading here this evening. Is there any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion passes unanimously, so we can move on to third and final reading this evening. Councillor Bressie.
I would move that Council give third reading to bylaw C-1371A as amended, being an amendment to the Northern Lights Area Structure Plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate on that third and final reading? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. I believe that handles all of the items of business for this public hearing and for our agenda this evening, other than I think we'll get into Council Roundtable. I'm sorry, Council, I did ask a couple folks, but I didn't get everybody. Ms. Karbaczewski?
Thank you, Mayor Given. We did have a scheduled delegation, Ms. Bruce, if Council wishes to make a motion.
Yes, thank you. Before we get through, so a motion related to that one, Councillor Blackburn. We're just not getting your audio, Councillor Blackburn. It doesn't show that you're muted, but we also didn't hear you.
No.
Maybe Councillor Blackburn, I'll move on to another council member to make that motion. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would move that Council receive our delegation's presentation for information.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. And I only see Councillor Blackburn, we're calling for the vote on receiving that delegation presentation for information. And I will say that we have lost Councillor Blackburn. I don't see him moving, so we cannot record his vote. We'll count him as off screen then for now. But that motion to receive for information does carry. And that'll take us into council member reports. Were there any reports from our external agencies, boards, and commissions? Yep, Councillor Plott and then Councillor Bressie.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I actually had two. I'll start off with an economic development committee. We had met last week. some really good conversation about business bylaw review that's going to be coming forward to council. Some really good input we had members of administration as well as our committee there, and had some really good feedback and information about other municipalities are doing and what we're looking at doing to launch ours. We also talked about the investment attraction strategy that's coming from Conway, and hopefully we'll have that to discuss and bring forward here later as well. So that was the economic development one. Would you like me to go ahead with the storm now or come back around? Okay, thanks, Mayor Given. Also had the AGM for the storm on August 18th. Full board again. Business as usual. Just to give a couple updates though, the governor's report did kind of state that the camps are starting August 31st. Normally the season's 58 games. They're looking at a 48 game play this year. There's a pay and play that they're looking at of how they're going to actually have players looked after while they're during this year. A little bit different with sports when a lot of players come from the state. So there's a little bit of uneasiness of how we're going to have players come because a lot of players in the AJHL actually are out of the states as well. So few teams are struggling. Fortunately, the Storm is not in that shape, but a few teams in the AJHL are struggling with COVID and looking like what it could look like coming out of it. Potential start time for the season is being slated around December 1st, but nothing official yet. And that's my report for the Storm. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. I think next I had Councillor Bressy, then Councillor Thiessen.
Great, thank you, Mayor Given. I got to attend Mighty Peace Watershed AGM with Councillor Thiessen, and I think he was sad because it was his last time being a board member of that organization. But then I got to be voted in to be our representative on that board. So I appreciate Councillor Thiessen going with me and handing off the reins on a committee that I know is dear to his heart, and I hope that I do a good job in his stead. And then after our AGM, we had the first meeting with the new board, and it was a really interesting discussion about political advocacy on the board. There was some movement from some board members to take a more active political approach with the organization. It's my understanding is historically it's been very much it will give technical advice and information to decision makers, especially at the province, but it hasn't really taken a strong political stance, and it hasn't undertaken strong lobbying, is what I understand from other board members. And there are some who are wondering if it should become more of a political organization and concentrate more on advocacy work. So I kind of butted out of it because I'm still so new to the board. I need to get my feet under it, and I'm also looking forward to hearing some expertise and some thoughts from the rest of Councillor and Councillor Thiessen. But just so you know, that's very much the conversation at that board right now, is where is it going politically in the next little while.
Great, thanks very much, Councillor Bressy. And then I had Councillor Thiessen.
Great, thanks, Mayor Given, and thank you, Councillor Bressy, for stepping up on behalf of the watershed. I know you're engaging in lots of conversations at that AGM, sharing ideas and perhaps networking how we could work some things out within the region with both what you do on the side and also what you do on council. So I think you're going to be a great representative. I advertised you very highly, said you were keen, and so no pressure. You're going to do great. And if you need anything, I'm here. Just a phone call away. I do have one update. It wasn't from a meeting. We're going to meet this Friday with the Grand Spirit Foundation. But in regards to, bless you, Arlene. Oh, in regards to coronavirus. The Grand Spirit
I felt that on Avondale.
Oh, geez. Anyways, in regards to coronavirus in our city, we did experience our first death at one of our seniors' homes. A 70-year-plus man passed away who did test positive for coronavirus. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because recently, and this might be of interest to council, we had another coronavirus test positive at one of our lodges, the Heritage Lodge. It was Alberta Health Services worker that tested positive. And since that time, we've isolated staff. We've tested all the residents at the lodge. But as of today, Alberta Health Services has confirmed that 3 cases of COVID related to Heritage Lodge, 2 Alberta Health Services workers, and 1 resident who is currently in hospital. And they suspect a potential 4th Alberta Health Services worker may have that. So all Grand Spirits Foundation staff were sent for testing on Saturday, and results are expected in a few days. The site manager was in close contact with one of the COVID positive contacts, and we are in contact with her daily as she works from home in isolation currently. Alberta Health Services stated that they're unclear how much exposure the lodge received. Therefore, today all residents were placed under self-isolation and will remain until in self-isolation until negative testing results are received. We sent out communication to the families on Friday and again today updating the isolation requirements and the number of cases related to the site. Grande Prairie Foundation's coverage staff has also worked over the weekend getting residents in the site ready for isolation as per Alberta Health Services and occupational health and safety requirements. We're just keeping you guys all in the loop so we don't see something happening there, but yeah, we're hoping to manage this well. And I would, if the media is interested at all, I would forward them to Steve Madden, our Executive Director of Grande Prairie Foundation, for further details or clarification. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Really appreciate hearing the update. Obviously, a lot of us are, everyone's concerned about our seniors, recognizing the impact that COVID-19 has had in a lot of care facilities across the world. Concerning news, but I'm very thankful that Alberta Health Services and the Grande Prairie team are on top of that. That's good to hear. Were there any other updates from external agencies, boards, and commissions? I'll share a very brief one from AUMA. Last week, I was in Edmonton in a joint session with AUMA board and the AMSC board. They took an entire ballroom for all of us, so we could each have our own table and appropriate physical distancing. But we were there for 3 days of strategic planning, first with AMSC, the Municipal Services Corporation, looking at their plans to continue to deliver the business that they do to municipalities like ours. And then a joint board session, and then a regular AUMA board meeting on the Friday before returning home. Just encouragement to council members, if you haven't already, I would encourage you to sign up for the AUMA convention. It's going to be very different, but it will be, as a reminder to all of you, it will be historic in that it will be the first online AUMA convention. The board and some delegates will be in person in Calgary, but the staff at AUMA have worked very hard to create an opportunity for all the engagement that you get out of a regular AUMA convention. Sorry, most of the engagement that you get at a regular AUMA convention, because we all know that there's a fair bit that goes on after hours as well. But all of the sessions will be online. There are some major performers, fantastic keynote speakers, and AUMA has reduced the registration cost accordingly based on feedback from members in advance. So, council members, I'd encourage you to have a look at that. We may want to have some discussion about whether or not we could set up a watch party, which some municipalities are doing, setting up watch parties with other municipalities in their area, so that you can get a little bit of that in-person experience, even though we're not all going to be in the same place down in Calgary. And I guess for all the members of our new council, this is the first online one and pandemic and everything else, but it's also going to be the last AUMA convention of this term. AUMA conventions happen immediately after an election, so they're a little bit later in election year, and so the 2021 AUMA convention won't be until after the municipal election. So this is your last opportunity to participate in an AUMA convention, and it'll be a historic one on top of that anyway, so I encourage everyone to participate. With that, we'll start council member roundtable, and I'll go to Councillor Blackburn. If you have an update from a board, Councillor Blackburn, by all means, and then we'll start roundtable with you.
Actually, I have a point of privilege I'd like to pursue. Due to a technical difficulty, which I couldn't understand, I was not able to participate in the debate regarding the delegation. And I have some serious concerns about this particular issue, and I would like, if the mover is willing, to move reconsideration so that I can be a part of the debate.
Sure. So are you referencing the one with respect to the Mission Heights area, Councillor Blackburn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion that was made and that was carried was just to receive for information. And so, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten who made that motion. Was Councillor Thiessen? Yeah, Councillor Thiessen. I'd be open to having that, so you'd have an opportunity for to be in the debate if Councillor Thiessen would like to make a motion to reconsider.
Well, I guess I could make that motion to reconsider. The reason I made the motion to receive for information is because we have more information coming back to committee about utilization of areas and how this might address it. So I thought that this would be sort of the point that, like this area would be the point that we would sort of look into that or not. But if you want to bring up a new motion, for sure, I'm willing to debate anything. So I will make a motion to reconsider.
Sure.
Thank you. And I think that just gives me the opportunity to add my voice to the debate on that particular motion. I don't know how many areas were decided upon by administration to be naturalized.
Councillor Blackburn, sorry, I'm just going to recognize the city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Motion to reconsider does not reopen debate until it's been voted on and carried. So this assembly needs to vote on the opportunity to reconsider this motion. Once that happens, we can continue the discussion.
Okay. So thank you very much. Thanks for catching us on that, Arlene. So we are voting on reconsidering, which would allow us to go back into debate on the original motion. All those in favor of reconsidering the motion with respect to the delegation? Okay, thank you. That motion carries. Okay, so we can go into the debate. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. I'll thank my fellow councillors for allowing me to do this. I don't know how many areas administration chose to naturalize, and I'm sure we'll find out that information when we get that next report. However, we've only had objections on this one particular location, as far as I know. The only thing that's come to council has been about this one particular location, and it's quite obvious it's a location that has been used in its mode condition for a good number of years by a large number of people, including a school, apparently. And so it just seems to me that since there was no discussion with the residents about or users of the area before we made the decision to what appears to them to abandon the site. And I'm thinking that considering that really the decision to naturalize it goes really against what the community has as an interest for that area, I would really like to see us just withdraw that one site from the naturalization program and go ahead and get the thing mowed and let people use it. So I would vote against having this just received for information, and instead would offer a motion to take some action.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. So you're speaking against the motion to receive for information. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Councillor Bressie?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Blackburn. I appreciate you bringing this back to the table, and it's definitely something that I support you in voting against this motion. If I was tempted to make a contrary motion, but I attempted that last council meeting and my motion wasn't successful. But if there's others, so I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to make a motion if it seemed like it was just me that wanted it. But if there's others that might consider supporting taking some action, I'd definitely love to have that debate. And the one thing I will say is I don't know, after walking it with the neighbors and after seeing it for myself, I don't know if the whole thing needs to be mowed. But I definitely love us to at least see the toboggan hills get mowed so that they're usable for this winter. I think it's the biggest priority I've got right now. But I look forward, if this motion does get defeated, I look forward to talking about what potential action could be taken.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressie. Councillor Platt, then Councillor O'Toole.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I like the motion that we had, and mostly, and I appreciate Councillor Blackburn and Councillor Bressie want to advance this. I also walked this last week. Beautiful spot. But I think we've got a report coming on the 15th that's going to let us have a very good conversation about what we're going to do with this. And to Councillor Bressie's point, I think that'll also give us enough time to go in there and say, we need to mow this area so they can still be used for winter sport, because I think that's a concern for me now. but I don't know if I want to start having one-offs of about a specific location until we have a holistic conversation about this process. So at this point, I like the motion of let's receive it for information. We have administration already going away to do some work. I think we can still react in time to help this area of the community by the winter for a mow in the late fall. So I think we've got enough going on that, and I'd be scared if we start piecemealing one-offs all over the community. They might have been the only one that come, but if we start piecemealing this, more will come. So I just think we need to be careful and stick to process.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Plott. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I really don't want to support this either. I think Mr. Plott has mentioned that we are having a report coming in, and at that time we can have a wholesome discussion and ask for certain things to be changed if we need to make that happen. And at that, I think we let the system run the way it's supposed to at due course. And with that, I will not support this motion as it is. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I will I'll make the observation. So we have right now, the motion that was made was to receive for information. That's what we're debating, whether we receive it for information or not. If this motion failed, then we'd have to do something else. So I'll just say that I also won't support the motion. I'm comfortable that we'll get a report, and that'll be more than enough opportunity for us to dig into whether or not we want to do something for this site in particular or for these kinds of sites in general. And so I'm comfortable that that's going to come in due course, and I don't feel a need to make a specific motion action on that today. I don't see anybody else. Then I'll call for the vote on Councillor Thiessen's motion to receive for information. All those in favor? Okay, and thank you. And opposed? Okay, I see 2 opposed. Thank you. So that motion does carry. We do still have that report coming to committee, and on September 15th, I think, as Councillor Bressie observed. So we'll have a chance to do that. But thanks, Councillor Blackburn, for bringing that up. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to participate and vote and get into the debate. I think
I thank you for that opportunity.
And Councillor O'Toole, I think your mic is still live. So we'll do council member roundtable, and Councillor Blackburn, I think we said we'd start with you.
I don't have anything else, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thiessen.
First in line, you guys. I'm going to list all the events that we got. Actually, no, I only want to make mention of 2, but I have 4 on my list. But first one I want to mention is actually August 20th. Council met with the Chamber of Commerce via Zoom meeting. It sort of ran out like a sort of a pseudo State of the City address, with Mayor Given taking the lead for a lot of it, and our administration putting in a lot of backup, as well as some members of council. I arrived about 12 minutes late to the meeting, but I phoned in, and you got to listen in on the good conversation. I just wanted to give kudos and props to Bill for doing such a great exemplary job as our leader of the city and presenting to the chamber and asking all their questions or answering all their questions, and providing that sound leadership that we need, so that gives confidence in the community. And I think that's what the chamber got. So thanks for that, for all the members of council that chipped in, and to Horacio and your team. Well, great job there. And then the other one I want to mention, because I'm leaving one for Dylan and I'm leaving one for Yad or Kevin, one of those 2. But the other one I wanted to mention was happy birthday to Today FM. They celebrated 8 years in the city of Grande Prairie on August 21st with a food truck celebration and some small businesses under tents, showing off their wares and stuff like that. There's some studio tours, and a lot of kids were really, really happy as I walked through those studios. So to Today FM and your fabulous news team, thank you very much for 8 years of service in our community. I look forward to a decade of, I was going to say destruction, but there's got to be a better D word. A decade of awesomeness. Let's just put it that way. Happy birthday. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Minhas.
I don't think I have much to say, because I was away for quite a bit.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Minhas. I have a feeling there's going to be one that you're going to be kicking yourself that you didn't bring up. I will go next to Councillor O'Toole.
Well, I'm going to help a friend out here. I was so happy to attend City Hall and the flag raising of the 74th birthday of the independence of India. And I was joined with Mr. Minhas. I think Councillor Thiessen was there, and I'm not sure who else was there, but it was a great event and a lot of joy from the people that were there to be recognized in the city being an independent country. I also would like to just bring up the pickleball courts. This has been in the council's, I'm not going to say face, but in the council's forefront for the last about 4 years. And the last 3 years, it was getting a little excited. And I can tell you that I walked an MS run one time, and there was about 15 women behind me, and they took turns every 2 minutes, tapping me on the shoulder. Boy, if we weren't doing this, we'd be playing pickleball, you know. And it's nice to see the facility done up so nice, the nice kind words by the pickleball club, to recognize administration for being so supportive, and also the city of Grande Prairie for being a big part of the success of probably the nicest pickleball courts in this province. So with that, I will leave whatever's left to whoever. And I do want to congratulate the Pickleball Club of Grande Prairie for doing such a great, successful campaign to get work done, and the donations of money out of their own personal pockets to make such a successful event and a location that will last for years. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I know it was already mentioned, but I just want to say thanks and again, well done to Mayor Given on how we got through the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I think it was a great opportunity. We've met with Chamber every year of our term, but I really love that administration was on the call this time. I think that added an extra element of transparency to the Chamber and a group that's worked really hard with our city, especially through this COVID issue that we've been having. And I think that there's been lots of synergies, and it's just showing us how proud we should be of the Chamber, but also how proud of the work we're doing to continue to foster that relationship with the Chamber, and something that this council has made a very big effort on, and that we want to make sure that we're ensuring that we're working with these organizations. So thanks, Mayor Given, for looking after that meeting. It's not easy to Zoom with that many faces on the call, but you did a good job of getting through, and everybody was well heard and well received. So appreciate that, and I really enjoyed that meeting.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Something I want to highlight is, two things I want to highlight is, one is a meeting that council had with MLA Allard and with Minister Taves, and I really appreciate them both giving us time to chat with them and being very gracious in terms of, we went well over our scheduled time, and they were gracious to listen to us and give us that time. And I know as I talk to other councillors across the province, that's a rare thing for MLAs to be doing with some of the peers I've talked to. And so I really appreciated the opportunity to advocate for the city and tell them where we saw some room for improvement, but more importantly, to hear from them, just their perspective and what they're thinking and what we might expect coming down the pipe. So appreciate the time they gave us. The second thing that I want to highlight along with Councillor O'Toole was the pickleball courts. And it was great to go see those open. And I think that the real thing I want to highlight there is how much community support there was behind that. That was something where council did give a lot of money, but so did the Swan City Rotary Club, so did the United Way, and so did a whole bunch of different companies, whether they gave cash sponsorship or whether they came and drilled holes for free, or whether they sold $2,500 worth of hardware for $300. Or whether it was just community members showing up to paint, wheelbarrow, drive their tractor for free. There was a lot of community support behind that. So really that's a project that I felt really good about supporting, because I knew it would be well used, but I also feel really good about supporting projects where I know city money is going to be leveraged, and there it really was leveraged. So I was happy to see that. And I also want to give a shout out to some of our staff. I know that the organizers were kind of apologetic to Councillors O'Toole and Thiessen and I that we as political representatives didn't get to cut the ribbon. But they said we just needed to let Ms. Bieberdorf do that because she's gone so above and beyond for that. And I think the three of us were more than happy to see her cut that ribbon. And it was great having a community group say nothing but good things about their interactions with a particular staff person, but with an entire department too. And they also gave a big shout out to our fire department who, when they were about to paint the courts, big task they had before them with small hoses and pressure washers available to them was to clean the courts. Well, unbeknownst to them, the fire department, some of our firefighters volunteered their time and showed up and washed the courts for them with their much more powerful equipment. And so they were so happy that we got to that the city went above and beyond to save them time and save them money and help with this project. So I was very proud of our community and very proud of our city to hear all that went into those courts.
Great, thanks, Councillor Bressie. I will just say I really enjoyed the opportunity to be here at City Hall with other members of council for the flag raising to recognize the independence of India. Great to see, to be reminded actually that there's a bit of a shared history between Canada and India as former colonies of England and the United Kingdom, and understanding that colonization has an impact on a country and on people. I also want to acknowledge Councillor Minhas as emceeing that event and really chairing it. We appreciate the fact that, Councillor Minhas, you bring your diversity of perspective and your community's perspective to the work at the council table, and really appreciated the opportunity to celebrate that and acknowledge that with so many members of Grande Prairie's Indian community. And thanks very much to the council members who had those kind words from you about the meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. But I want to say two different things. First off, all thanks to administration for providing the slide deck and the technical details. It's pretty easy for any one of us to be able to read off what it says there on screen. But so there was obviously a lot of work that went into that, and as we all know, that was administration. But also too, in the meetings with the Chamber and with our MLAs, I think if I'm remembering correctly, every council member contributed on some point during those meetings. And so I appreciate the council gives me the latitude to lead and be the spokesperson for council, but I also appreciate that each and every one of you is contributing in those meetings as well. I think it speaks highly of us as a team and as a group that everybody has something to contribute in those sessions, and it comes across loud and clear whenever we're together with any of these external parties and partners. So thank you all for all of your support and everything that you do. And with that, we'll call our meeting adjourned.